Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. Following the order of business in our posted agenda, we will start with discussions in business. The first one is a half-day workshop. Where's Mr. Bott? I just saw him.
He just walked out and then he came in and came out. Went out.
Well, that was quick. Okay, let's move on. We'll circle back to the half-day workshop. Next up.
There he is.
Oh, you're on.
Hi.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chair, Mr. Commission. I'm Tom Bottom, the Town Planner here in Carver, Mass. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about the Serpents update of the priority development areas and priority protection areas. I'm going to start, if I can, with a movie that Serpent put together for us. It's brief, it's about a minute. Just talk about the big picture.
In 2023, communities across southeastern Massachusetts will update their priority development areas and priority protection areas for the first time in 10 years. Why now? The last update was in 2013, and a lot has changed. New developments, new policies, and new priorities. We want to capture all of that. Additionally, we want to be sure our region is prepared for the future South Coast Rail Service and all the exciting opportunities that come with it. What are these PDAs and PPAs, and why are they important? Priority development areas, or PDAs, are areas where you want to grow. They usually have appropriate zoning, good infrastructure, and local support. Examples might include a local downtown area or an important job center. Priority protection areas, or PPAs, are areas that should be protected from development because they play important ecological, cultural, or open space roles in your community. Examples might include an ecologically sensitive habitat, agricultural land, or drinking water resources. This straightforward mapping activity will take place in each community over the next few months. It's important to note that you will have lots of opportunities to participate and comment on the work. It's also important to note that this isn't zoning, but sometimes communities realize they want to change their zoning, and it's not an investment plan. But often investments, developments, or land acquisitions happen as a result of the designation. We'll provide examples of those real-world changes in the next video, Priority Area Success Stories.
Well, unfortunately, airtime timed out just as we were getting into that, so. The finish was fabulous. There was fireworks, there was special effects. It would take your breath away. So I'm glad we were spared all that. But in any event, where we're at right now in the process is having the folks at Serpent come to meet with us on a staff level and talk about the data that they've put together, the information they've put together, and looking at what exists presently in the designs, and what we might look at using new mapping information, new GIS information as well. So in 2007, there we go. So in 2017, this was the map that they had put together. And what we're looking at doing is through new GIS information and new mapping information, sort of evaluating how cogent some of those areas still are with the information we've got, and look at some other potential areas for either inclusion or exclusion to the both priority development areas and the priority protection areas. There will be more public meetings later in the fall. I'm just going to turn it off because it's annoying me. So there'll be additional meetings in the fall, public meetings where we'll bring those initial investigations to a broader general public. But at this point, what we're seeking are members of various boards that deal with regulatory and land use in Carver, including the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, the RDA, and the Select Board, and putting together a couple members from each of those bodies to sit with me and staff members like your staff, Gary, and look at just the data sets and evaluate some of those for a public meeting later on in the fall. So that's my ask for you today, is to get a couple of your members who are interested in sitting in a room for 4 hours with me. Gary will be there too. He's an excellent asset to have in a room for 4 hours. But to come sit with us and the folks from Serpent and look at the information that they've got on hand and put together the program for the fall, for the public meetings. Happy to take any questions.
All right. Can you just briefly describe what Serped does with those results? I believe they're a suggesting agency. Is that correct?
Yeah, Serpent, like most regional planning agencies in the Commonwealth, are advisory. Only the Cape Cod Commission has regulatory power. So nothing that comes out of Serpent, out of our meetings, has the power to regulate things. PPAs, priority protection areas, PDAs, priority development areas, are not zoning. They're just mapping in data to look at a context for those things. It's not unusual for zoning results to come out of something like that as you take a look at some of the areas that are in town, both for additional protection or for additional development. But as you know, zoning goes to town meeting, so that it's a considerably lengthy process. And we may see some changes out of that, but those would be suggested changes from the end of the PPA process. We're also in the process of working with Serpent on an update to the housing production plan, as well as completing our open space plan. So we work with Serpent on a lot of things that tend to benefit the town as information to use for making informed decisions.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions regarding this?
I have one.
Yes.
So I guess this was what we weren't able to quite see up on the screen.
Yeah, that's the 2017 map.
Right. So I was just curious because there was an open space committee working with Serped that's just wrapped up recently. I didn't know if there were results that might change what is considered a priority in terms of development versus protection and so forth.
No, they sort of work on parallel paths, and I haven't been involved in the open space planning process with them. That started before I got here. They hit a bit of a snag, and based on our conversation with them, they hope to have that process completed here, hopefully within the next few months. But I'm particularly not familiar with the open space planning process because I wasn't here when they started that. But they're sort of parallel paths. It's not unusual to see something that's in a priority protection area be part of the open space plan, because in a perfect world, when property becomes available through Chapter 61A or for a sale where we have the right of first refusal, everybody always wonders, well, is that something that we should look at acquiring? And processes like this to identify areas that should be protected and things through the open space plan to look at areas that could be amenities and assets or just protected areas for the town, they're related.
No, I know. I just some of the red parts in terms of the potential development areas are abut some places I know that are in conservation restriction, and so I'm not sure if I know some of the survey results before. I know, as you said, the final results from Serped aren't out from that last committee, but I think the results were is that there was some development that could happen in places that were in fact already developed. They just need to be revitalized, not new areas developed per se.
Yeah, there's a lot of there are places in town where you look and say, well, at some point that was a good idea for somebody to put this shopping center, this whatever it happens to be, and those might be areas for redevelopment for things like mixed-use housing. There's a great need for housing.
Okay. So in summary, this is not predetermined.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, so this is the 2017 map, and the differences, the changes that we've had since 2017, in both mapping and in data availability, just make it a bit more of a more surgical process to look at those things and that's sort of the grunt work we'll be doing, early on in looking at some of those areas in the maps and things like that they put together for us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have two additional questions. On the map, there are some dotted lines, and there's nothing in the key that indicates what they are. For instance, they're around the center of town where all the purple is for priority development areas. There is a little black area to the east of that, and then to the northwest and west, there is a purple dotted line. Do we know what those are?
Yeah, I think those are, according to the legend, those are the priority development areas and the priority protection areas from 2008. So this is our third round of this.
Oh,
I think
I
we started
see.
it in 2006, 2008. So those were,
Okay.
so those sort of show some of the changes at that point.
So in
Okay.
fact, it shows that the area's been tightened up, not for potential expansion.
Correct.
Okay.
And at this point, we're agnostic to whether places are expanding or
Oh, I
retracting.
see.
Just with better data and better information, we make better decisions.
Okay.
All right, and did I hear you correctly in saying that agriculture is included as an okay use in a priority protection area?
That's what has been presented previously. That's, I'm not going to foreshadow what's going to come out of this process because it starts with the data, starts with us looking at things and goes to a larger public forum later on.
Okay. We need 2 volunteers to do this.
I'll do it.
We have Mr. Hall and Mr. Lake. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you much.
You're welcome.
And thanks for having me.
When do you expect this will start?
Well, we started with a date called July, and we're running out of July. So I'm going to go August-ish. But yeah, Serpent has a number of communities they're trying to do this with. So we're looking at scheduling that. But, at this point being, July 19th-ish, we're probably going to be into August when we have this meeting.
Okay.
So we'll get you plenty of notice. And like I said, the first sit-down is 4 hours or so with data wonks and maps. And then in the fall, we'll have a much larger public presentation and a lot of outreach for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is a COC on Montello Street, the work that was done on the new Montello Street.
It's the little plan set.
Oh, here it is. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Wayne Booker from VHB, how are you guys?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Joanne Stoll from VHB as well.
Sign in, please. Thanks.
So on behalf of the Town Administrator's Office, we're here to request a COC for the Montello Street project. I believe you guys, some of you, I don't know if I've met all of you, but we were here 2 years ago, and we permitted that through you guys. Gary, you weren't here at that time.
Right.
Jim, I think it was Jim that was here.
Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke, yes. So we're here to request a COC. I believe we provided all the necessary material. Be glad to go through that. If the commission has any questions, we went through and point by point showed how all of the general and special conditions were adhered to as part of the construction and follow-up. Provided a set of as-built plans from the contractor, and I believe all the appropriate forms. Form 8A, provided a copy of the original order, recorded order, and one amendment that was made during construction to go from a 3-sided box culvert to a 4-sided box culvert.
The filing was adequate.
Yep.
Did a nice job.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, well, Gary and Dave and I did a site visit this morning and saw the work that you had done, and it looked great. It looked great.
Excellent.
You know,
Glad to hear it.
the box culvert was a little bit more massive than, not massive, that's not the right word, but
Larger?
no, not larger, just
enhanced.
It looked better than I thought it would.
Yeah, so it's interesting, not just to give you a little history. So originally, it was contemplated that the culvert that was there was going to be extended. And then as we started looking into it, there was really not a lot of good historical records on the condition of the culvert and so forth. VHB's structural engineers actually evaluated it over several years, and it seemed to be very stable and adequate. But based on the funding that the town had through the MassWorks grant, we looked at it and we looked at the costs related to trying to extend that versus replacing it in kind. And it was very incrementally difference as far as a little bit more money to replace it, and we figured that would be the best for the town because now you guys have a brand new culvert that'll be there for 100+ years. So we felt that was the best thing for the community.
Yep, the culvert looked great, the two drainage ditches coming off either side, the riprap that was down there to let it seep into the ground. I think there was an air vent that we saw across the street.
Yeah.
And
Those are part of the vents in the drainage system. That's part of the whole infiltration system to try to promote, venting and so forth to let the water.
Okay.
So it's so close to the wetland right there.
Yes.
And we've had so much rain, you can see how wet it was, obviously, but.
yeah. All right, well, I had no problem with it, and Dave felt the same way. So I will entertain a motion to approve the COC for DEP SE 126-617.
So moved.
Second? Mr. Lake seconds. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve it, the COC for 126-617. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Next up, 104 Tremont Street, another certificate of compliance. This is federal cranberries. Was federal. Again today, on our site visits this morning, we did visit 104 Tremont and saw the work that had been done and finished. And it matched the drawings that we had approved back in, was it 2009? Was that when this was first done?
Yeah, approximately.
Approximately 2009? Okay. So, I had no questions.
Thanks.
The crop looked fantastic. The berries are already the size of a nickel, and there are tons of them. Everything looked as though it had been done according to the plans. We rode around the bogs and saw all the different individual bogs, and it looked to me like everything was done the way it should have been. Any comments? You saw the same thing?
Good, great.
Right. Ms. Sheehan, this is not a public hearing. If you would like to speak, keep it to this particular COC.
Okay.
Come up, but please keep it short.
As you know, there's an outstanding superseding request for determination of applicability with Mass DEP for this site. I'm not sure exactly where this COC pertains to. I didn't see any information about that on the website, but this is an area where the order of conditions is from 2010, is that what you said?
2009, I believe.
2009, so didn't it expire?
No, a COC never expires.
So this is a certificate of compliance.
Yes. If you do something in 1950 and you have an outstanding order of conditions and you have to sell your house today, you can come and get a COC on that.
At any point, the order of conditions doesn't apply within
You do not
expire
need
within?
you do not need a certificate of compliance within that 3 years. You need to complete the work, but you don't need a COC within the 3 years.
So did they complete the work within the 3 years?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, how
They-
can
they-
you issue how can you issue a
Because
certificate
it's
of
completed.
compliance?
It's a certificate of completion. They have finished the job, it matches their drawings. That's what we're doing.
But it's an expired order of conditions.
No.
We went through this with DEP, and there's still an outstanding superseding determination of applicability request
Thank you
with
for your
DEP.
comment.
Okay.
Okay, I will take a motion, I'll accept a motion to approve the COC for 104 Tremont.
So moved.
Second? Mr. Lake? All right, we have a motion and a second for approving the COC on 104 Tremont, SE 126448. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. We are, that's approved. Okay, next up, 36 Bates Pond Road, which we visited also today after a bit of a circuitous route.
Sign.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
How are you?
Good.
Could you just introduce yourself, please, and tell us who you are and where you live, please?
Frank Buckman, 36 Bates Pond Road, Carver.
All right, and you were here because we had contacted you a while ago about some cutting that you had done close to the shoreline. And once we had notified you, you said you would allow the stuff to grow back. And we went today and did see the same area that we had seen previously. And it was Gary, Dave, and myself. The foliage has grown back very well, but there is still a large pile of, for lack of a better word, junk.
There's some pipes and stuff next to it.
There's a lot of stuff, right, about 15 feet away from your chicken coop. So that needs to be removed.
Okay.
All right? You've got some plants that are starting to encroach into that, so make sure that you get that out of there, please, before it gets all too entangled in what you're growing back so that you have to cut it again. I think that's, other than that, it seems to me that everything's healthy back there, and it's coming back to the natural way that it should have been all along. So as far as I'm concerned,
I'm fine
and
with
we, and all,
I'm good.
and our conservation agent felt the same way, that we feel that, that what you've done is fine once all of the garbage is removed from that area. We saw something that was a little bit further down that looked like it had a picket fence around it.
I put that up there. There's some lilies and stuff that grow there.
Okay, that's what we thought. We didn't want to go down there, but we thought it might have been a garden.
Well, I have a lot of people, that little section of road, when they tarred that, they seem to push all the leftovers out in there. Now the landscapers pull in there, dump chunks of wood, branches, leaves. I've put chains across it, they just tear it down. I don't want to lock it, it's not my property.
Okay.
But I cleaned anything that was down in there after you had seen the site. I had cleaned that out. There was a
Okay.
bunch of rotted wood down there and some branches.
All right.
All that is cleaned out and been replanted. So,
Yeah, look good.
Yeah, other than the pile of metal
yeah, the
and
pipes.
stuff.
I just got done with 15 hours, so.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes a little while, but.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm working on it. That will all be cleaned up.
Okay, great. I think that's it. There's no vote
No,
necessary?
I'm all set.
We're good.
Okay,
All right.
very good.
We
Thanks
took
very
a
much.
nice,
Thank you
we
very
took a
much.
nice ride to your property today, too.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Okay. Next up, 17 Wareham Street, a complaint. Mr. Flaherty.
Okay. We have some packets, which I don't even know where they went. Mr. Benson on an abutting property made a formal complaint about some fencing and some goats that were placed along the brook at 17 Wareham. It's most of it's in scrub and forested land. You need either permission or a permit for that from, this commission, which we received neither. So today, Savory, Dave and myself went out and looked, and we did see 8 goats and new fencing. So I'd like to see what the commissioners would like to do.
Do you have any thoughts, sir?
Well, it seems pretty clear cut that everything was within the wetlands and was within 200 feet of a stream also. So I think they'd have to be removed. That's-
Yeah, we saw the goats eating the fresh foliage coming up right along the riverbank.
That's right.
There were cut trees and the shoots that were coming out of the trunk, the goats were eating. I have a picture of it.
And the WPA doesn't give an exemption for agriculture in a scrub, shrub, or forested situation. It would have to be like a farm field or something like that, and that was, clearly forest.
Do we have anyone here from 17 Wareham Street? Okay, no. All right, I believe that we need to send a letter asking for the fence to be removed. We made a decision about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, to not allow for an after-the-fact NOI. So I think the property owner needs to remove the fence, and if he wants to put it back, he needs to come to us with plans and see what we determine.
Okay.
But again, there's no exemption for that. It's certainly it's right on the riverbed. Actually, the fence on the eastern side goes down the riverbank into the river. To
Right,
keep the
we did
goats
see
from
that.
walking around the edge.
Yeah, we did
So,
see that. Okay.
Anyone have any issue with doing that? All right. Should we vote on that, or?
For the record.
Okay, let's,
Yeah.
I'll take a motion to send a violation letter to the owner at 17 Wareham Street to remove the fence.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Badger, second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to send a enforcement order or letter to remove the fence at 17 Wareham Street. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. It's 4-0. All right, next up on our discussions in business is a donation offer for mitigation land specialist.
All right, you all have this. It's a copy of an email I received from them. It's kind of nebulous, but I wanted you guys to start thinking about it. They haven't named the project that they would like to contribute towards, but I'd like to, have you think maybe, they've got it seems like they have a little bit of money, I don't know if you would like to see that put towards 44 Lakeview, or if you have another property maybe you'd like to, or properties you'd like to have some money put into. But when the time comes and they come forward with the project and they want to do some mitigation or replication or something, they're willing to fund something. So just so you have that in your mind.
Have you all read it beforehand, or are you seeing it for the first time tonight?
I'm just seeing this now.
Okay. Then let's put this on the next agenda as well to discuss.
Sure. Sure.
So just read it.
And I'll see if I can't get more information out of the young lady that sent this to me.
Okay.
If I could, if there's anything that, Gary, if you can provide us in terms of protocol for accepting funds to be clear
Sure.
for the person actually giving the funds, that does not mean that they have our vote for something that we may deem inappropriate
Okay.
later down the road, but conservation would always accept funds if it goes toward conservation purposes.
I saw this a couple of weeks ago, and my gut feeling is that we're a town commission, we can't accept a gift. So I'm thinking...
As I said, I don't know what the protocol was.
Well, plus
but-
it's a nebulous offer too.
Right.
You know,
Right,
it's,
but if they want to do something, maybe they could donate money to the Buzzards Bay Coalition in the Carver Conservation
Sure.
Commission's name.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or something like that, along
Yep.
those lines. But I don't think that,
I was just going to say, depending on what their agenda is, they may be prepared to be disappointed because, because some of us kind of have to
well, I
vote
mean, it's
based
nice
on
that they
bylaws and
offered it,
things
but
like that.
we're,
it just came
We're a
out of
town
left field
agency.
too, but,
All right.
you know,
Yeah,
it's
it's just-
offered, so I have to put it before the commission, so.
yeah, I don't have a good feeling about it. I have a warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, as I said, I would have to see some type of protocol for that before even being able
Okay.
to even consider it myself, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Under discussions in business, I just want to add one more thing that's not on here, and we are, as is evident tonight, we are a committee of four, commission of four, and we do have an open seat on the Conservation Commission, and it's good to have 5 members. So people out there, anybody is looking to perhaps contribute to the town by sitting on a commission, we have an opening, and it's a select board, it's a town administrator
Yes,
appointment.
appointment.
So you would go to the town administrator's office in Town Hall, or fill out an application online. So, just wanted to say that. Okay. Moving on, we'll do the minutes after everything else. Continued public hearings. I don't have to read this, we did this already. 134 Main Street, SE 126661.
Oh, all right, thank
Oh, no, that's not, I'm wrong, that's not that one.
you. That's the big,
Yeah,
the big
it's
job. Oh, this guy, okay, thank you.
Brad was gonna hold the way on it, but we didn't have time. Yep. This one has 12 bucks.
Thank you.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, and you, thanks.
I'm fine, thank you. All right, you were here a couple of months ago about the proposed garage, and we didn't have much of an issue with the garage itself, but we did notice quite a bit of disturbing in the 65-foot that we had seen before a couple of years ago on another matter. And then we asked you to come back with some thoughts on making it better. So this green area on your drawing is going to be restored
Yes.
with loam and seed.
Yep.
See seed mix profile. Okay. Okay. And you're going to plant trees along the edge. The area where you are putting restoring with loam and seed, are you then going to let that kind of return to nature?
Yeah, that was supposed to be a conservation mix or wildflower mix.
Okay, all right.
Which
That's fine.
this was all that after the fact notice of intent because of the
Yes,
trees that I
yes.
had cut down and the
Yep.
goats that I had.
Yep,
And then at the last meeting, I was trying to get the garage approved, but I had to go back and revisit this and replant this first. So I was just trying to plant up to the 65 feet.
right. Yeah, if you recall, we did not have much of an issue with the garage in its placement. There was just a little corner, southwest corner is within the 100-foot, so. Does anyone have any questions?
So with the proposed garage, there was no way of reorienting that corner away from the 65? I mean, excuse me, the 100?
So he's asking, do you want to still go in like you had it before, facing the 65-foot, or are you going to twist it and have the opening facing the road?
I think for right now, I was gonna keep it how it was.
Okay.
It's a matter of trying to get a vehicle in there, but I did think about turning the garage. I just haven't had time to think about it lately. So life gets busy. So I haven't revisited that, but so where it's set back right now, between the engineer and Brad, that's kind of where we thought the acceptable position would be to give the space I needed.
Is there a line as to where the river front actually is? I don't see that.
It's right here, it's on the right. Right here.
That is it?
Yeah, the approximate location of the center line.
Oh, the center
river
line
edge.
of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but but in terms of the river's edge, though.
They have the mean high water line. That's that MHW line.
Okay,
And then right above that with the A numbers, that would be the BVW.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's not really a well delineated stream. It's kind of meanders its way through almost marshland.
And so therefore so I don't have a protractor with me, but that makes the 65 and 100 foot not the 65 and 100 foot. If you're delineating that line from the center line or from the river's edge? Because my understanding was this from the river's edge is where
It's from
that
the
starts.
MHW line. There's
Right.
there's two sets of lines here. There's the one for the Riverfront Act and the other one's for the BVW, the 100-foot in the town 65. So if you look up top, there's a series of lines. There's a 200, two 100s and a 65.
Okay.
Yeah, the 100-foot inner riparian zone goes from the mean high water mark, and then the other,
But I have a scale if you want one.
the 65 and 100 are both marked.
If you say it's what it is, then it is.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
it,
So a lot of moving parts for you, I understand, but I guess one of the main sort of static points for us is what's inside and outside the parameters that are in our purview. So that is, so the shed does, the garage does come to our attention.
Right.
So.
I think it was that, what's it called, a riparian zone? I think that's what the engineer and Brad were trying to, that was the line they were concerned about.
right, and
I
you
don't
did
know
pull
what-
it, but, there's two lines for the riparian. There's the 100-foot and the 200, and they made sure your proposed building's outside of the 100,
Yeah,
because that's the more critical.
Right, you see that. So, you know, there's nothing within the 65, nothing's being built within the 65, and it looks to me like the southeast corner of the garage is probably at the 85-foot mark. So, we've allowed garages like this in new buildings, new homes, where a corner of it is within the 100-foot. So I'm okay with it. We sort of were at the last meeting. Anyone, any other comments by anybody on
I'm good with it.
I
the
think the
board?
big thing was the planting the trees and stuff.
Yeah, that's really what was the most, the
Repairing.
Yeah, the restoration of it.
restoration of the area within the 65.
Do you want to see any kind of barrier along the 65-foot BVW, the town setback, like a split rail fence or something? Or do you want to just do posts and placards?
I think we do posts
Because
at this point.
from what the attorney said, if we felt it's critical, we could call out split rail fence and have them just put the placards on the posts for that. Your call, but just to let you know, that is an option.
Where's the scale? I don't see one.
I was looking for that earlier.
So this is 103 feet, and
Scale, well,
Here.
120.
Black and white one is a scale there. 1 inch to 20
1
feet.
inch, 20 feet.
okay.
This one,
About 150 feet or something like that.
Yeah, it's 1 is 20. You're right, Kurt.
yeah.
Well, okay. I don't think in this case,
I'm okay with posts and signs. I think.
I'm okay with posts, but I would like the posts to go across on the 65 feet line everywhere on the property, which includes the area going up to the northwest.
Okay, how far do you want them spaced?
Every 50 feet,
Okay.
I would say. So we'd probably need about 5 or 6 of them. But I think for this, that'll be okay.
He's got a question.
Yes,
So when
sir.
you say everywhere on the property, that's into, how far? Like, is that the
Wherever your 65, wherever 65, your dotted line is showing 65 feet. That's where you can't, that's your no-touch zone from there towards the BVW. So
Behind the house too?
behind the
Yeah.
house. We want, only one of the posts there.
And
We're not asking you to do anything other than put posts there, so as a reminder to you and anybody else who may be back there, that this is a protected area.
Or somebody else that buys the property in the future, they know that that's.
okay, just so you know, that's all, that's just grass. And I have,
I understand that.
so
I understand that.
I gotta put.
It's going to be grass down at where you're restoring it as well. So, I think as a reminder to you and everyone else that this is where the 65-foot line is. Anything that you do on, well, actually within the 100 feet, you still have to come to us, but anything within that 65 feet needs a variance. So it doesn't make sense to me to have the posts on the area you're restoring at the 65-foot line and not have it on the rest of your property at the 65-foot line. They're both going to be grassy areas, so I'm of the opinion that there should be something there that is a reminder to everyone that this is from that point on towards the water.
What do you mean a reminder, like, I'm not gonna build anything.
This is, to be clear, this isn't a reflection on you. It's just a standard of where we delineate for, because, you know, house projects happen. I think down the road, there's a project we're going to address with another neighbor where they went and plopped a shed, you know, in a you know, buffer zone as well, and that has to be removed because there wasn't at the time, there
It's
wasn't.
already developed, I guess, as I have chicken
I
coops, I
understand
have
that.
sheds, but
I
I
understand
cut the
that.
grass, right? When I cut the grass, I go in straight lines, not around posts. you're asking to put posts, I'm not trying to be rude, but literally in the middle of the square yard. I don't know if it's worth a visit to visit the property again so you could see that area. I don't know if you've seen that area.
I don't think that mowing your lawn in a straight line is more important than having signs. There have been other cases, particularly in new homes, that have gone up where...
It's not new though, it's been there for, it's been like that for a long time.
But you
I
have a
understand.
violation, though.
I understand that.
It's on, not there, not in the backyard.
And I just measured out, you're only looking right in the middle there, one post.
Okay,
Just one.
okay.
As Mr. Flaherty mentioned, we have been given the green light by town council based on some violations that have happened on other properties where we had asked that the signs be put up and then work was done behind the signs. We do have the town council's blessing to ask people to put a split rail fence in along the 65-foot line. Is that what you would prefer? Would you like to put a split rail fence in along that whole line?
No, I'm
Okay.
not, I'm certainly not here to argue with you.
I know
about
you're
that.
not, but
I just wanted you to,
I get that.
think about it. It's in the
Right.
middle of my yard.
Okay.
That's all.
Put a piece of PVC in the ground, put the pole in that, take it out when you're mowing your lawn, put it back when you're done.
Okay.
All right? Okay. All right, so,
Sorry to
Yes,
repeat
go.
myself, just to, I appreciate your patience, but there are two 100-foot lines that I'm looking at on this one,
yes,
and I just want to double check that I'm,
this line
yep,
is from 100 feet from the mean high water line
Yep.
of the river. So that kind of trumps the 100-foot from the BBW, which is the line that goes through.
well, I hate that language, kind of trumps, but, all right, so within within our bylaws, I'm reading it as that's still something that needs a variance.
No, within our bylaws, 100 feet.
We're talking about this one. This is the one where our bylaws
Our
go to.
bylaws are the 100-foot and the 65.
No, I get that, it's just the way this is drawn out. There are two different 100-foot lines that makes it a little confusing is all.
Okay, but what their engineer did was they moved the garage out of this 100-foot.
All right. So this, okay.
So we're giving permission for a corner of the garage to be in the 100-foot buffer zone from the BBW.
All right, so I won't look at that anymore. Got it.
Okay. All right, so,
This is what was, the other one's what will be.
all right.
Got it.
Do we have any comments from the audience? No. Okay. I will accept a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and second to close the hearing on 134 Main Street, SE 126661. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved 4-0. I will now accept a motion to approve the NOI for SE 126661
With the exception of the sign, right?
with the conditions
The
put
conditions.
forward by the
Right.
agent.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'm going to go with Mr. Badger on that one. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the NOI for 134 Main Street, SE 126661, based on the conditions put forth by the conservation agent of Carver. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. We're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, public hearing, new public hearings, 132 Plymouth Street. It's an RDA, so there's no SE number. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 PM on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the request for determination of applicability, RDA, filed by Thomas Butler to determine A, whether the work depicted on the reference plans is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, and D, whether the area and/or work depicted on the referenced plans is subject to the jurisdiction of any municipal wetlands ordinance or bylaw of the town of Carver. The RDA is for constructing an addition to a single-family home approximately 90 feet from Cooper's Pond. The property is located at 132 Plymouth Street, Assessors Map 17, Lot 85-0-R, Carver, Massachusetts. All interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Butler. I'm the builder on this project. Representing John and Pam Peacock on this.
Okay.
They presented the proposed plan with the guidelines, you know, as far as the setbacks and all that at the other meeting.
Okay, let me just grab the right plans here. Thanks. Okay. All right. So again, this is just being within 100 feet where they need permission, or actually just to see if they have to do an NOI, or whether an RDA is acceptable in this
Right,
case.
since it's a previously disturbed part of the property. Hey, excuse me for a second. I just had someone mention to me they're getting kind of warm in here.
Okay.
Could we suffer having the fan on?
Sure, I'll yell.
I'll try it and you guys can say shut it
Okay.
off.
Should open the windows. Remember when we opened windows? Okay. All right, so this is previously disturbed area. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this?
I mean, as you can see on the 100-foot line, the existing house and deck are within the 100 feet, but well past the 65-foot marker. We have a corner of the house that comes 10 feet within property to, you know, Cooper's Pond, as you can see by the yellow line on the maps I presented earlier. The land in front of it, as you can see, drops off dramatically. It's like 32 feet in elevation in that 90 feet. Moving back puts us more in violations of zoning, so we're kind of, this is where it's got to be. The other side of the house has a septic system, so we can't do it there. So,
Okay, and, excuse me, the deck is new as well?
the deck is being rebuilt. It does say proposed on this, but there is a deck there already. It's in need of serious repair.
Okay,
So you're just replacing the
We're
deck
replacing it,
in kind?
yes.
So it's-
Okay.
Okay. It's about the same dimensions?
Yes.
Okay.
and are those steps going down to the pond?
Yes, they'll be staying. They're concrete steps.
Concrete?
Yep.
They
They've been there
exist?
for a long, long time.
They're there now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
all right.
In fact, the stairs off the deck is gonna be in the exact same place.
Okay. Anyone have any comments on this?
So really what we're talking about is this corner of this proposed addition?
Yes, being within the 100-foot, where we need our, if we were to do an NOI, it would just need our permission. With an RDA, that will negate his need to do an NOI, if we have a negative determination.
So I recommend a -3, you know, and Just, they've got noted erosion control, just make sure they put that in before you start.
Right.
Other than that, it's a good submission.
And we can use the, is it the wattle? Is that what you call
Correct,
it?
yep, 12 inch, yep.
Rather than the silt fence.
All right. Since it is a hearing, we need to, motion to close the hearing. Someone make that motion?
So moved.
All right, second? All right, Mr. Badger made the motion, Mr. Lake seconded it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Oh, yes, Mr. Lake is abstaining because of a family
Yeah, Paul, you said Lake, but Paul.
hall, Lake Hall, inside, outside. Because of a family relationship. All right, so it's the vote to close the hearing is 301. I will accept a motion to have a negative determination of the RDA.
So moved.
We got Curtis moved it, second,
Second.
and Mr. Badger seconded it. All those in favor of a negative determination, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none?
Abstain.
One abstention. All right, we're all set?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm always inclined to say no on those.
I know. Yes. It's very rare when a no is a yes. We're all set. Okay, next up is 46 Federal Road. I'll read this in a second. This is coming out. What's the other one? 46 Federal Road, NOI DEP, file SE 126670, notice of intent. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 p.m. on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the notice of intent submitted by ADM Cranberry Company, LLC, for the construction of 22.3 acres of cranberry bog, the construction of a 2.9-acre reservoir tailwater recovery pond, and the enhancement of an existing 7.1-acre cranberry bog through clearing, excavating, and grading. A portion of the proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. However, some minor activity, grading, equipment activities will be conducted within the 65-foot buffer and will require a variance from the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The project is located at 46 Federal Road, map 131, lot 2-4, 2 through 4, Carver, Massachusetts. All interested parties are invited to attend. And again, Gary and Dave and I went out this morning and saw where the proposed work is going to be. And the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, Bill Madden from GAF Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of ADM Cranberry Company LLC and the NOI that we filed on your behalf. Just as a little background, this project has been before the commission a number of times, I think. And I want to say the first time might have been around 2008 for a variety of different reasons. Some of the configuration of the bogs changed, added a couple of acres here or there. So it brings us to 2023 in the plans that we have submitted for you. And the major purpose of the plan, outside of the fact that there is buffer zone jurisdiction with the Conservation Commission, our goal is to have an order of conditions issued by the Concom prior to us moving forward with the earth removal permit that's necessary to further advance the project. So I think that's one of the things that the Soil Board or the Earth Removal Committee prefers or would like to see is an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission when they go through their proceeding. I just was adding my name, I'm sorry. So in any event, the,
You have to speak in the microphone, they can't hear you, I don't think.
sorry.
Thank you.
So in any event, the project is a rather large project with respect to the Cranberries project itself. We have a rather limited involvement with conservation, only because, you know, the land is considered considered land in agricultural use. You can see this hatched area here. This is the project area. And you can note that this large cranberry bog, Waukeeta bog, is immediately to the east of the project area. So what we have is a band of 100-foot buffer zone and 65-foot no construction zone, or no structure zone rather, that's adjacent to either cranberry bog or flowage canals, drainage canals that currently exist as part of the cranberry operation. So we felt that it was in everybody's best interest to view the plan as it's intended to go forward with the earth removal committee, and this is how we're proposing to present it. So you can see on our drawing that we have the 100-foot buffer zone for the cranberry bog located on the east of the site for the most part. And you can see there's a red line with 2 dashes in it. That's the 100-foot buffer zone. And then there's a green line that's no structures within 65 feet of the resource area. The resource area in this instance is land in agricultural use, and it's exempted under the Wetlands Protection Act as far as what the regulations would require for a project other than an agricultural project. You know, where this is land in agricultural use, there's quite a bit of benefit granted to the owner, operator, developer of a cranberry project. So we show where we're going to put we show where that line is, and what we've done is we've really attempted to keep everything outside that 65-foot zone and the 100-foot zone. I think everything falls outside the 100-foot zone, and there's a couple of instances where we are within the 65-foot zone, but we're, in our opinion, it's not considered a structure like a house, a garage, or a deck. You know, it's on the ground. It's consistent with the agricultural activities that are ongoing on the site. That element of the bylaw would not necessarily apply. I know that the legal notice did state that a variance may be required if it's the wish of the commission to evaluate a variance condition for the project. You know, we're willing to, obviously willing to hear what you have to say and move forward in whatever appropriate manner you feel is necessary. But that's essentially what we've done. We show like a block of 8 acres. We call it proposed bog number 1 up to the north of the site. This configuration is a little bit different than what you might have seen in the past. I have some half-size plans if you like. This configuration of the bog acreage is a little different. While we do have 150-foot sections, the main 8 acres is surrounded with a standard 30-inch high dike road, and then down the center of each one of these, well, not the center, but on the outside edges of each one of those 150-foot sections is what we consider as a low-flow dike. So there's a low-flow dike that allows the equipment that they're going to use to manage the bog to travel on. So it's able to, you know, reach 75 feet on each side of that dike road, as opposed to having something that's 300, 400, 500 feet in width across here. For example, if there was a sprinkler head on this section in the center of it that was malfunctioning, somebody had to get there. They're able to drive down these low-flow dike roads and get there and not walk across a bog that's being irrigated or frosted in the middle of the night to get to that sprinkler. So it's really a management and a convenience tool for the operator. So that's the configuration that we have on those two Craven Block sections. We have like an 8-acre block, and this is a little bit better than 6 acres. And then there's 4 3/4 acres of additional Cranberry Bog that runs in let's call it a north-south configuration as opposed to the east-west configuration. What we've also done is we put our water supply reservoir, we've centered it in between each one of the larger Cranberry Bogs, and that facilitates economy of scale with pumping and irrigation systems, things of that nature. It will allow a pattern to be created that's pretty efficient and meets NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service standards for irrigation needs. Granted, we would have to extend a little bit of a larger main line down to handle these 4 acres, but for the most part, these 2 blocks would be pretty reasonably managed with water. The slope that we're showing around the perimeter of the permanent site is a 2.5 to 1 slope. You might have recalled seeing the equipment operator pushing that material on that slope this morning. They're working on doing that. We're trying to get the exterior portion of the site pretty much nailed down, vegetated and what have you. That's really one of the things that quite a few people wait till the end of the project to do, and there may be some benefit in getting it done sooner versus later in this instance. Over here to the south of those 4.5 acres, this will be a landing area that's going to be created. So with part of with all this acreage, there's a need for bog maintenance, sand. You have to have your harvest equipment nearby. So there's a detrasher, a berry pump, tractor trailers that are going to be receiving the berries. So all those things need to be here. And where they temporarily place maintenance sand for the winter, these larger areas allow them to do that, allows them suitable area to load the sanding buggies and to deposit the sand there. I mean, there are trucks depositing sand for the maintenance purposes. There is equipment that's needed to load that material onto other pieces of equipment for standard cranberry operations. So we did put a reasonably sized landing area that's large enough to accommodate this operation. The other portion of the notice talked about a 7-acre area of clearing. That's on the extreme southern end of the bog. It's adjacent to the Ocean Spray property. The purpose for that is to remove the trees that resulted in some shading of this cranberry bog on the end. If we look at what the production shows on these sites, the end of these cranberry bogs are a little bit weak in production. They attribute that to shading, and they attribute it to perhaps some frost that might occur because of poor air circulation around it. And in addition to the improvement of air circulation and shading, these trees always become a host for different type of insects and things like that. And those insects find their way onto the bog, and then there's a management activity that needs to take place to eradicate those. So, all these steps are being taken in an effort to improve the operating conditions down there and to expand the nature of the project. But as you can see, we have a very narrow band of jurisdictional area called the buffer zone that's right there, right adjacent to these cranberry bogs. There are a couple of flowage canals that fall between the bog and the adjacent upland. Those flowage canals are, water management systems that are exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act for maintenance and normal improvement of them. So if they wanted to, if there was a need to mow weed, to remove collected sediment in those areas, we would be able to, we should be able to go in there and remove that material without the benefit of coming to conservation. Although in many instances, we will submit a letter to Concom advising them of some exempt activities that might be being undertaken on the Cranberry site if we think that if it's in a more sensitive area where there's a lot of people. I'm not making light of the fact that there are people that live on Cranberry Road and over here at Cranberry Village, but you know, those are some of the reasons why we like to advise conservation commissions of the routine maintenance that's being carried on. So in the event you do receive a call, you would be you'd have a heads up as to the reason why. But in any event, that's pretty much the scheme of things with this project. It's really considered a buffer zone project. We've received a DEP file number. They've deemed the application to be complete and what have you. And I think that's all that I have to explain about the project, and we happen to entertain any questions you might have with regards to this application.
Can you please just explain a little bit about the wells that are surrounding the property, the wells?
The wells.
Like next door at Ocean Spray?
There's a public water supply well on the Ocean Spray Cranberry lot. That water supply well has, I think it's used for all operations on the site with the domestic needs and the process needs in the plant. Associated with that well is a zone 2. Let's see what we have. We have an IPA, an interim wellhead protection zone that's offset from that well. It's a DEP delineated zone that we obtained from the DEP database. So there's one for the Ocean Spray plant. There's also another municipal well, I think it's down here right in this corner for the Cranberry Village. Cranberry Village, it was the Cranberry Village well, I think initially, I think now that's taken over by the town. It's actually a town-owned well. And in similar fashion, that also has a zone 2 associated with that. And the zone 2 is the portion of the zone of contribution for that well. So the groundwater that's being withdrawn from the well is has a zone of contribution to it. There's 2 types of zone 2 delineations. One is a true interim wellhead protection zone that's actually calculated based on drawdown of the water supply well and the adjacent drawdown of the water table in upgraded, downgraded. I mean, it's a large hydrogeological study that's done to make those determinations. And then there's also an interim wellhead protection area that's a 1/2 mile radius from the well. So you'll see anytime you go to a map and you see a round circle on it, that's an interim wellhead protection area. That's not a delineated zone 2. It's essentially the fail-safe position, I think, is how DEP might view it. And then when you actually do your well drawdown evaluations, you might find that your zone 2 is oval shaped. You know, it might draw more water from one end than another. You know, the groundwater flows, groundwater flow in this region is typically southwest. So when we work in an area that has a zone 2, there's regulations for activities and land uses within the zone 2. And one of those regulations in one of those land uses is there's no excavation allowed within 4 feet of the water table unless that material is associated with you can do it if it's associated with a house construction. You know, it needs to be redeposited, I think, within 45 days. So when we look at the line that we have out here, the zone 2 line, and the zone 2 line for Cranberry Village, we have the zone 2 line for Ocean Spray. We've sandwiched our reservoir between those 2 lines, and we're able to excavate within 4 feet of the water table in those areas. These other areas, if you look at our cross-section that we proposed for the cranberry bog, we have a confining layer. This is the lowest layer of the cranberry bog cross-section. On top of that confining layer, the confining layer is intended to stop water from penetrating into the ground. It's a water conservation management practice that we've been designing into all of our bogs for God knows how many years. So the first layer is that what we call the solely permeable confining layer. It's detailed on the plan. We show a depth of that material to be between, I think it's 4 and 8 inches or 4 and 6 inches. Immediately on top of that is an organic confining layer. That organic confining layer is similar to what you'll find in the real world environment in a wetland where the cranberry bogs were originally constructed. That material acts effectively as a sponge. Retains a lot of moisture, for the plant uptake, and also any agrochemicals that are applied to the bog at the very, very small rates they're applied, they're retained within that soil, and that dense fibrous root system that's in the extends from the 4 inches of planting sand, or 8 inches in this case. Planting sand extends down into that organic layer. So that's all part of the mitigation of the cranberry bog system, and all those things just work together to make effective and efficient use of whatever is needed on the bog, whether it's fertilizer, a pesticide, or a herbicide. It's pretty much retained in that. And a pretty simple analogy, and Irving D. Moranville from the Cranberry Experiment Station, when he was around, he explained how that whole thing functions to me, and he said if you go to your kitchen sink and you take your sponge that you might be doing your dishes with, totally saturated, and if you drop an eyedropper with a single drop of dye onto that sponge, where does that dye go? Doesn't come out the bottom of the sponge. It's retained within the fiber of the sponge, and that's what really is occurring in that organic layer when we lay out a cranberry bog in that manner. So we find that that's an effective way of really minimizing any potential adverse impact, and also mimics the natural environment, which helps yield higher crop yield, and that's what it's all about, is higher crop yield. And hopefully that instead of the state average, which is like 140, maybe they grow 400 barrels to the acre on a cranberry bog like this. Maybe it's 200. I don't know, but we think that by implementing and incorporating many of the best management practices that have been developed by the Cranberry Experiment Station, and the best management practices that the natural conservation resource agency has pulled together are very beneficial, and all of those elements are included in these plans. But that's, I guess, a long discussion about the Zone 2 and how it works, and why we have a reservoir where it is, and what we're proposing to do.
Great, thank you. That adds a lot of common sense to what we're looking at. Dave, you were there today. Any questions?
I just had a couple questions. So the zone over here, the north part of the map, I guess, is you have the Zone 2 here, dash line right here, the north end.
Yep.
And that's the well that's the calculated impact to the well that's over that supplies water to the Cranberry Village. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the other one over here, this other wellhead reduction, this IWPA zone, that's just an interim one, so that's just sort of a generalized wellhead protection area. Basically, is it IWPA, right?
That's the 1/2 mile radius.
Just the radius around a well, right? There's no science done on it or anything like that. It's just a circle drawn around.
Other than the science, they believe, the DEP believes that's suitable for the use.
But they haven't actually done anything on that well to determine where that is.
As far as I know, I don't know if anything has taken place further, but the record information that we used, that's what they have.
So if it says Zone 2, there's actually done calculations on the hydrologic parameters and all that stuff of the to that one well, relative to that one well. If it doesn't say Zone 2 or it says IWPA, there's no, there hasn't been actually numbers been put into the system, right? Is what you're
Right.
saying? Right. Okay. Good.
Any questions?
Couple.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for providing clarity as to how we define the different zones. I think that's helpful for the public, for sure. In terms of agricultural exemptions, I think I'd like to study this a little bit more, and that there are some things that I think are, it's one thing when things are grandfathered in, but it's another when there's actually new construction and within our purview. And it's just something I'd like to look at a little bit more, as, you know, we're just provided these plans tonight. I know you guys have been to the site itself. I hate making an uninformed decision on things. The other question I had is, I'm sure in your, it's not provided here, but are there any gradient plans that you have of the site itself?
Yeah, they all have the existing topography, and proposed topography is shown on these drawings.
No, the topography, I'm talking about the gradient, like the water gradient.
The groundwater.
Groundwater table, yeah. I was looking for, are my
We
eyes
talked
not
about
working?
that a little bit today. You're about,
I don't have we don't have it on this map, but we
Okay.
have the USGS mapping of the groundwater table and the gradients that are for Carver, Middleborough, Wareham, Plymouth, and yeah, I do have that and can provide you with whatever level of information you'd like.
The only reason it's interesting to me is because we're talking about digging in depths close to, within 4 feet of water tables and so forth, so it's something I'd like to take a look at.
Yeah. And there's also, on these plans, there's also elevations of the surface water, whether we have a pond or a bog ditch and what have you. And we find that, I mean, that's real world number as far as what the water table is, or the surface. The water that we see on the surface on a pond, I mean, that's a window into the water table. So that is where the actual water table is. And I want to say we were at 75.4, 75.3 on some of these ponds on this particular site. And I mean, that's what it really shows.
right, and the elevation for all of the boxes is 79.5 feet. So it's-
They're 79.5 on this plan, but the existing bogs, you know, they might be 76, 76.3, 76. The existing cranberry bogs are lower than the ones that we're proposing. And one of the things that's, you know, hard to evaluate when we start to look at what the water table is out there, particularly on a cranberry bog system where they have the series of ditches, flumes, you know, it's manipulated to such a high degree that it's really hard to evaluate what's going on out there other than by the numbers that you have in a plan. The numbers that USGS has put together, they collected all that data from true groundwater borings and really evaluation of the regional groundwater table in the Plymouth Carver area.
Anything else? Mr. Lake?
So you're estimating the water table to be about 74 feet somewhere, is it about, so you
Yes.
think? Yeah, just from looking at the surface water
And
impoundments.
we also placed groundwater monitoring wells on this site over the years, and we had them there for a number of years.
Oh, so you do actually have some
Well, we
wells?
had them, I don't
Yeah.
think they're there
Okay.
any longer, but yeah, we did place those, we did monitor them,
Okay.
just don't know what the so, like I said, this has been ongoing since 2008.
And it looks like the impoundment, the reservoir anyway, will be at bottom of 62 feet, is that right? That's what it looks like to me.
Elevation 62, is that
Yeah,
what we have?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it says 62.
Yes, 62.
So it'll be about 12 feet of water in there, or something like that, I guess.
12, 13 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
just so you guys know, I also have, I get a notification of Wetlands Protection Act file number from DEP, and down at the bottom, if they have any comments about a filing, they'll list what they want the applicant to see. They had no comments for this filing.
Okay. Also, what I wanted to point out that was evident from our site visit today, that almost this entire area where the bogs are going has already been excavated.
Yes, what'd you say, down to about 80 feet we were at when we were in there, roughly?
82, 80, between 80 and 82,
Right.
yes.
So they've already, Dan just said they've already excavated most of it out.
Right. And the contour lines that show what appear to be piles of sand or dirt, whatever, on the east side of all the bogs, especially proposed bog 1 and proposed bog 2, those were man-made buffers, primarily from a previous order of conditions to block the view of the construction that is being done now.
That was
So-
my understanding, but I
Yeah.
also
You can
was,
sort of tell by looking at it.
yeah, and I was told today that there's actually, some of that material was placed over the existing grade before it was excavated.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, when those piles get removed, there's likely to be some virgin material that has not been manipulated or excavated and will need to be removed to bring our project to
Okay.
the finished grade. But yes, there was those are pretty good-sized man-made piles.
Yes,
For the most
yeah,
part.
yeah, I just wanted, you know, the rest of the board to know that, or Dan and Curtis, who weren't there today. It's a big project. It is cranberry bogs, it's agriculture. I had no other questions today when we were out on the site visit. One of our earlier COCs at 104 Tremont, they had done something almost exactly like this, creating 8 or 9 bogs that were primarily rectangular and with a new hybrid, and they were expecting to get 400 barrels per acre. We asked that question today because the crop looks so good. So that's, you know, a huge sea change from the 140 to 150 that's normal for older bogs. All right, this is an open hearing, so are there any other comments from the board, first of all?
I just want, when we were out there, you had said that you, from looking at the regional groundwater maps, that the groundwater flows generally to the southwest, correct?
Yes.
So any kind of impact that would have on this, it would be to the southwest. Whatever got put into the ground here, it doesn't necessarily will, but would flow to the southwest, that would go into other bogs, right, that are over across the road there, basically, right? I mean, just so that people have an understanding of how the, where the groundwater flows.
If something were to, if
Right.
something were to migrate,
Right, it would go to the southwest.
Yes.
Right, okay.
All right. Is anyone from,
yeah.
Ms. Bogart, please sign in and...
I think my questions are going to be directed more toward Mr. Madden, if that's okay.
That's fine. Through me, please, just,
Sure.
but I will...
Mr. Madden, I'm one of the people that you refer to as the people who live on Cranberry Road, Jim Bogart, 116 Cranberry Road. And I have concerns and I'm looking for clarity as to how this fits in to everything that's been going on across from my house for over a decade. You said it started in 2008 and there's been activity there since we moved in, and we've been told many times it's gonna wrap up. So with the work that has been done and the clearing and stuff ongoing, how does this relate to that? Is this an addition, a continuation?
I mean,
What-
it's really just a modification of the original plan.
Because it looked like the write-up that I got at my house looked basically the same as the public hearing that came before this board in 2017. So, and I couldn't see any of the pictures that you were showing when you were speaking. So can you just point out what was reconfigured?
No, I think that is pretty accurate, that this does mimic what was presented in 2017. I think my reference was more to going back to 13, 11, and 8 is what my reference was, because initially we only had a small section of bog up there to the north, and then the project just grew by acres every couple of years. So that's what prompted us to go back to the soil board and back to conservation. When the plan was going to change, we needed to present the commission with the current plan of record. So anytime there was a modification to the design, we were obligated to come before Concom with a new plan. But this is the plan from 2017.
So is this related to Phase C of the whole the Tohonet mixed-use development? Because I know there was bog activity proposed in basically that exact same spot as part of this big overhaul from Makepeace.
I think that is one of the things that was part of that T-MUD, is that what they were calling it? The Tohonet mixed use, yeah, yeah, that right there.
So, so this is part of the T-MUD because a final environmental impact report was submitted by AD Makepeace and Beals and Thomas in 2022. And in it, it says that the Phase C1 Wankinko Cranberry Bog expansion area has been cleared. And if it has been cleared, why does more clearing have to be done? Because I just keep getting told it's not done, it's not done. I have no idea what's going on over there, and it looks like it's never going to end. And this says it's done. So I'm looking for.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
Okay, I don't know if you guys would want to.
I think I might be able to answer your questions, because I think there are two questions. I think the area that has not been cleared yet is the area on the right-hand side of the bogs, which is farthest away from where you are. That still is wooded, and that's going to be removed for better air circulation to eliminate frost issues, as was mentioned, and also to remove trees that are putting shade on that area of the bogs as they've grown. So,
A lot of, I'm sorry.
the second part of your question, there was a sidebar conversation that was held today at the site between Mr. Flaherty and one of the people from Makepeace.
From Makepeace.
And the question was, I believe you asked him when they were thinking about planting.
Spring.
Fall, I thought he said. Maybe this fall?
No, spring.
Next spring.
Yeah.
So that would be probably the last phase.
To put the plugs in spring.
That would be the
2024.
last phase of what you would consider construction. So, everything is cleared now. All they have to do is build the bogs and plant the cranberries. And that they're expected to do within the next 9 or 10 months.
And they want to finish the side slopes.
So then all of the construction or equipment that's going on in the cleared area, when's that going to stop?
The equipment that's proposed, that the area that's being cleared adjacent to the proposed Bog 3 is for the harvesting equipment. And the trucks to take the berries out, and any maintenance equipment, as Mr. Madden said, that there is equipment that has a 75-foot reach to get into the middle of the bog should there be any construction or maintenance needed, so that that's what those small roads are between each bog.
I didn't ask them that direct question, but if they're gonna start putting plugs in the spring, everything's gonna have to be buttoned up before they plant.
Right. So go right ahead.
Well, we're waiting to receive a date for a scheduled hearing for the earth removal to complete the job. And, given the volume of earth that's necessary to come out of here to build the project, to complete the project, it may take longer than 1 year.
I'm just
Right.
trying to,
I don't have an answer to the completion date. My real focus tonight was discussing the project as it relates to the filing that we made. and I didn't really discuss anything about completion date. I think a lot of that has to do.
As far as heavy construction equipment, which I think is what your question is, I mean, you're a lot closer to the end than the beginning of this project. Would you say yes?
I would have to say yes.
Okay.
I'm just confused because they told the state they're all done. What kind of stuff is still happening? So then, I didn't come here expecting you to not grant the variance or permit, but I was hoping that you would consider two things in an order of conditions. And I was hoping that you would mandate that all vehicles operating in the permitted area use white noise alarms for safety instead of the traditional beeping backup alarms, because in the past, that has been an issue for myself and my neighbors, and we were able to talk to a former committee member who reached out to Makepeace, and they've been pretty good about using the white noise backup. They came and did a site visit at my house and said, yes, it sounds like an alarm clock, so they've been using them pretty well. But since, if a new order of conditions is going to be issued, I'd like to get it codified in there so there's something to refer to instead of we said we'd do it, so we'll do it, but in the future it not happen. So it would just put in writing something that's been happening. So.
Can I address, before you go to your second one, can I address this one?
Yeah.
I don't think that's within our jurisdiction. I think most of the equipment is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, which is what we're really here for tonight. I would think that your question would be something for either zoning or most likely earth removal, because all the equipment that we saw today, there was equipment on this hill closer to your house that was grading it to get to the gradient that's shown here, and there was equipment over around the proposed Bog 3 area. All of that equipment was outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, which is why we're having this hearing tonight. So I understand, I think that's a great idea. I don't know if it's something that would hold up as an order of conditions coming from conservation.
Okay, what about working hours? Would that?
Again, that's probably the building department, building inspector. I wish Mr. Bott was still here. He would probably be able to answer that.
Because I know it was in an order of conditions in 2017. So.
From conservation?
I don't have that information, but it was 7:30 to 4, and they've been starting at like 6:45 sometimes. So I'm just trying to protect my neighbors and myself and just understand what is happening and why it's not stopping. But you said that there's not a date before earth removal. If that's where I should go, I'd like to go.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, we haven't been given the hearing date as of yet. I think there's some other issues going on with filings that have been made to the soil boards that have maybe led to the delay in those hearings. We filed, I want to say we filed for the hearing with the soil board, might have been around the same time we filed with conservation, which was early June.
Okay. I mean,
We're waiting for the hearing date.
He said you guys are going to hear from Cranberry Road residents, and I'm here to learn.
Yeah, if you don't mind, write down your name and phone number, and I'll talk to the building inspector.
Sure.
And I'll ask him about hours of operation and noise.
I don't think we disagree with any of your suggestions. I just don't think we're the right people
If I
to.
make a special condition with, it doesn't hold anything from us.
Okay. It's just, it's been over a decade.
That'd be annoying listening to that all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
But just by presenting it tonight, it is on the record that that is a suggestion for order of conditions from someone.
All right, thank you. You can go to someone else while I fill this out.
I just had one quick
Yes, go
question. Is that okay? It was brought up at one point, but it's not clear where the tree removal work is going to happen, where that begins and ends.
It would be in this area here. This to the south of the existing bogs.
Right, like this shows what it's going to look like. I'm trying to get an idea of what kind of where the trees are and within our jurisdiction now. so that we're not going back and looking at
The
stumps.
trees are probably fairly close to the bog road that you can see right along the edge of the bog. The bog road it looks like it's almost splitting the 65-foot zone,
Yep.
buffer zone.
Yep.
So just to the south of that is you can see the contour lines that exist, the lighter contour lines that exist.
Yep.
So that is all forested
Okay.
right now. And they're obviously fairly close to the road if the shade is hitting that.
Not to interrupt, but as a side note, I don't know what the date of the ortho photo is. It's on the cover sheet, but looks pretty accurate to me as far as, well, maybe not because it shows quite a bit of wooded area, but yeah, that would be one thing to look at. I can provide you with another ortho photo with shows the limits of clearing if you'd like.
Any other comments from? No. Either one of you or both?
Public comment?
Public comments?
Public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So Catherine and I are going to present some comments.
And if you haven't signed in yet, sign in, please.
Oh, sorry.
My name is Catherine Harrelson, and I'm here tonight representing Community Land and Water Coalition out of Plymouth, Massachusetts. We are a nonprofit group whose mission is to protect, preserve, and steward the land and water resources of southeastern Massachusetts, including the Plymouth Carver Sole Source Aquifer. Our members live, work, and recreate in Carver and are specifically impacted by decisions made regarding the land and water management in this area. So earlier today, I submitted to Mr. Moore and Mr. Flaherty written public comment from our organization via email. I do have one paper copy right here if you'd like me to submit it right now.
I was out of the office all day and I'm only part-time because we were out doing our field visits, so I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I received it and I read it.
Okay, great, thank you.
So-
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's on the record for...
Yes, I did. I read it from your hydrologist, I think he wrote it back in September.
Yes,
last
that's
year.
correct. Yes. Yeah. So I'd just like to go over a few points from the affidavit of Mr. Scott Horsley tonight, if I may just have a few minutes. As it
Yes, you can
pertains-
do that.
Okay.
Be as
Thank-
brief as you can, please, but
Sure.
say what you need to say.
Absolutely. I would like the committee to take the findings of Mr. Horsley into account in making a decision for the notice of intent for the order of conditions for this project. Back in September, Mr. Horsley did a fairly comprehensive review of the area and impacts of this project on the town of Carver. I'd like to remind the committee that this is not an isolated project right here. It's part of a much larger area of impact all along Federal Road in Carver. This is one of 3 areas of excavation going on in Federal Road. The total amount of earth removed permitted for this project is close to 8 million cubic yards of earth. According to Mr. Horsley, who's renowned and recognized as an expert hydrologist, this type of earth removal will cause significant alterations to the hydrology and water quality and downstream water resources. Additionally, it significantly increases the vulnerability of water resources due to the substantially reduced depth to water. I just want to take a moment for the record just to remind the committee that this is in a wellhead, Zone 2 wellhead protection area for ocean spray. It's within the town of Carver's Water Resources Protection District, and it sits on top of the Plymouth Carver Sole Source Aquifer. And it's also surrounded by several public and private drinking water wells. According to Mr. Horsley, these sites have been significantly excavated to depths minimizing depth of groundwater, effectively eliminating the naturally occurring pollutant attenuation capacity associated with the soils, eliminating the filtration capacity of the soils above the water table, and this could have a detrimental effect on the quality of drinking water within the wellhead protection areas. According to the town of Carver, the purpose of the wetlands bylaw is to protect wetlands-related water resources, including adjoining land areas, by controlling activities likely to have a significant cumulative effect on wetland values, including public and private water supply, groundwater, and groundwater quality. Therefore, protecting wetlands is determined to be a contributing factor to the protection of drinking water supplies for the town of Carver, as well as other public and private interests. The earth removal and sand mining will have a detrimental effect on drinking water supplies by changing the surface water quality and quality of the wetlands, and altering the flood regime and drainage rates of the wetlands, and causing siltations of the wetlands as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking this into consideration, for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to kind of follow up a little bit, as I mentioned, most of the excavation has already been done. I did read the affidavit from Mr. Horsley, and the Earth Removal Committee was mentioned 4 times, the Zoning Board was mentioned twice, and Conservation wasn't mentioned at all. So it seems to me that while your points are most likely strong, they're misdirected here for this particular project. Also, Mr. Horsley's affidavit was across multiple Makepeace projects, not just this one. And this one's, I think, if you were going to look at all 3 of the projects that he cited in his affidavit, this is not the smaller of the 3, but not the larger either. So we're here for this only tonight. We're not here for anything that Makepeace is doing anywhere else on Federal Road. We're here tonight for the construction of cranberry bogs on this particular site, and the related agricultural necessities that go along with cranberry agriculture. Okay? Ms. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll ask a rhetorical question, but the bylaw does state as its purpose the protection of public and private drinking water wells and the aquifer itself. So it's really not a misdirected comment. Anyway, I will address some specifics about these particular plans and why they violate the bylaw. In the scheme of things, as you know, as you saw today, this location at 46 Federal Road is the site of Reed Custom Soils, which was portrayed in the T-Mud Phase C1 as an agricultural operation that was going to be temporary for the blending of soils. So this is a site that's used to supply Reed, the location at 46 Federal Road. Reed is one of the largest aggregate mining operations on the East Coast. This project that you have in front of you here absolutely does not meet the criteria for normal improvement of land and agricultural use under the Wetlands Protection Act. You're asked to approve a project that's going to mine in the sole source aquifer in order to create a water supply pond for the alleged bogs that have not been built in over 12 years of excavation at this site, as Mr. Madden has explained. You absolutely should be figuring out how many acre feet of water are going to be held in this reservoir. What is the Water Management Act registration withdrawal for the water for these bogs? How many acres of bogs is this reservoir going to supply? And how does this fit within Carver's 2019 climate mitigation report that was done for the cranberry industry by the town's consultant, Voss and O'Neill? Specifically about how these plans do not comply with the bylaw. I have reviewed this carefully with a professional engineer, and Section 3A2 of the bylaw requires plans to be stamped by a professional engineer. These plans are not stamped, by a professional land surveyor. They are not stamped by a professional land surveyor, and the plans do not comply. Therefore, this application should be revised. Section B2 requires the plans to show maximum groundwater elevations. These are not shown. That violates the bylaw. The monitoring well data, as Mr. Madden explained, is from 2017 without any updates or information regarding whether these levels were the estimated maximum. That is not accepted engineering standards to provide you with 5 or 6 or 7-year-old outdated data. Section 9.2B of the bylaw, as I mentioned, requires you to take action to protect public or private drinking water supplies, groundwater and groundwater quality, surface water and surface water quality. The mining at this location to date, according to satellite images, has already encountered and gone below the groundwater table. Under Section 3.3, Section 3B3 of the bylaw, soil characterizations must be provided in the application. They were not, and specifically there is no test pit data. Therefore, the application is not consistent with the bylaw. Section 3C of the bylaw requires that drawings be done at a scale of 1 to 60. The drawings are at a scale of 1 to 60, which violates the bylaw requirement that an application have site plans that are no greater than 1 inch to 50 feet. As far as the variance, Mr. Madden kind of waffled about whether he was really asking for that. And I just want to read into the record the requirements for a variance, just to remind the public that in order for the commission to issue a variance, it must specifically find, based on clear and convincing evidence set forth by the applicant, here A.D. Makepeace, that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, hydrological conditions, topography of such land, and especially affecting land, but not generally affecting wetlands in the town, that a literal enforcement of the bylaws would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the applicant, and that desirable relief may be granted without material detriment to the values protected by the bylaw and without substantially derogating from the extent or purpose of the bylaw. So those are the findings that you have to make in order to grant the variance, but the application itself provides no explanation of how these criteria are met. There's nothing that explains what is rare and unusual about this request. Since 2015, the land here at 46 Federal Road associated with Phase 1 on the plans, which included 8.24 acres of bogs and a 2.9 acre pond, has been cleared. The site has been strip mined for sand and gravel to supply Reed Custom Soils. The sand and gravel is gone. The area available for conversion to the proposed use of the alleged Cranberry Bog project is an open pit mine and has remained this way with no vegetation for 8 years. No cranberry bogs are built as shown in the GAF plans submitted to the Earth Removal Committee by A.D. Makepeace in 2011 and 2017. Why not? Again, the filtration capacity for the sole source aquifer for 200,000 people has been permanently removed. This should be addressed, particularly since the area is tributary to several drinking water wells. Based on the existing conditions, topography provided by GIF and Makepeace in this application, nearly all the sand and gravel required to install the proposed Phase 2 bogs, 8.52 acres, has been completed. Why hasn't that been done? The order of conditions should have a condition that these areas that have been strip mined since 2011 actually have the cranberry bogs and reservoirs shown in the plans installed before you go ahead and allow additional wetlands alterations and the clearing of the forests as described in these new plans. There's a proposed agricultural use associated with the area on the site north of the entrance driveway. However, there is no agricultural use proposed with the proposed excavation to the south of the driveway. The total to be removed under this combined earth removal and wetlands plan is 72,400 cubic yards. That's probably about $700,000 at least worth of sand and gravel. When you look at the overall strip mining that has happened here, the earth removal north of the entrance, the total that AD Makepeace has been permitted by the Earth Removal Committee to remove here alone is 1.4 million cubic yards, and this will add another 1.3 million cubic yards. So what is the hardship and/or the use that justifies the earth removal, especially since a variance is required to proceed? Again, the total area that has been disturbed is about 37 acres with little to no vegetation. This proposed plan in front of you now will expand this to over 50 acres. There's been no timetable presented as to when the site will be stabilized and vegetation established. The long-term impacts on the groundwater and surface water should be addressed, and this should be the first order of conditions before anything else is done. There should be a complete hydrologic study and investigation on how the ongoing and historic strip mining has impacted water quality, groundwater flow direction, etc. Makepeace is proposing straw wattles for use as erosion control. Based on the Massachusetts guidelines for erosion control, these measures are not suitable for this large an area. The erosion control should be increased to a combination of 12-inch mulch logs in combination with a silk fence. Based on aerial imagery, Makepeace's mining at this location has caused significant erosion on the face of the slope adjacent to the first existing bog as you turn north to the entrance. Based on the aerial imagery, visibly the access road has been regraded to remove the sediment, and it appears this has impacted the wetlands resource. There has been no discussion regarding this impact or any measures needed to address these violations and the limit of the impact on the wetlands resource and what restoration measures have been implemented, if any. This is especially important since normal measures would include vegetation, which has not been implemented in over 12 years at this site. The earth removal permit that's in place has expired, and in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Makepeace should have at least filed and obtained from the Earth Removal Committee that permit so you know exactly what the excavation is going to be. This is a catch-22 situation. How can you issue an order of conditions if you don't know what the earth removal is actually going to be here? Finally, there's no checklist included in Makepeace's application as required by the Carver Wetlands Bylaw. As to the previous orders of conditions, are they expired too? Are they in compliance with those orders of conditions? Another question is this where AD Makepeace is putting the Wonkinko solar project that it has submitted to Eversource and that is appearing on the Eversource list of potential projects in Carver? To summarize, in reality, who's kidding who here? This has been an ongoing, active strip mine and aggregate mining operation for 12 years. There are no bogs in sight. They've received 3 permits for this location. How much longer is the Conservation Commission going to go along with this ruse?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I request a 1-minute recess? Is that, or can I step out for 1 minute? Is that okay?
You can step out for a
All right,
second.
thank
Yes,
you.
we'll recess for a second.
Yep, please.
Are you back? Okay, we can resume. Would you like to address any of Ms. Sheehan's comments? Is there anything there that kind of stuck out as being inconsistent, or I don't want you to go, if there's anything that you'd like to rebut. Microphone, please. The microphone. Thanks.
I don't really have anything to rebut. I mean, I'm familiar with the Horsley affidavit, and, I think that I've even written one that was written contrary to that for Makepeace, and, it's difficult to comment on conclusory statements, nothing, we're hearing a lot of things, but we haven't been provided with any factual information. We've been given a lot of talking points that apparently people want some discussion on, but there's no proof of anything that's being presented.
Okay. All right.
Did you comment there?
Hi, Mary Dormer, 162 Plymouth Street. I actually wasn't going to say anything tonight, but I am concerned with Mr. Moore's comments about this just being, about the one project and how it's not all about all of Federal Road. While Mr. Madden was speaking, I went on to the DEP website to find out if Ocean Spray and Cranberry Point have been tested. Ocean Spray was tested in 2022, their water, which is concerning considering that that's a product that goes out nationally and people drink it. And if those cranberries are contaminated, then we're contaminating the United States and other countries. And Cranberry Point, Cranberry Village, Mr. Madden misspoke and said that they belong to the town. I believe that after town meeting, they now belong to Cranberry Village. That is a group of elderly people. Those wells haven't been tested either since 2020. That's a concern, and they need to be tested. And I'm sure Makepeace would gladly test them for everybody before anything is done by the Conservation Commission. Additionally, he said that there are no monitoring wells now. Before any of this is done, we need monitoring wells. We live on a sole source aquifer. Huge concern right now is PFAS. It's North Carver, as Dan knows, is contaminated with PFAS. My own well is above the state limit with PFAS. We need to make sure that the sole source aquifer is protected, because that sand that is being excavated at an alarmingly fast rate is what filters our water. And it is the job of this Conservation Commission to protect the 11,000 residents in Carver and the 200,000 people that rely on that sole source aquifer before we give Makepeace everything that they ask for.
Thank you. Mr. Farini.
Dan Farini, 84 Fosdick Road. I sit before the meeting tonight. I've sat for a lot of meetings, and I have some concerns of what I'm hearing tonight. I see a plan that is not fully finished. One of the things that concerns me is I heard that they want to remove 7 acres of vegetation and trees to allow light into the cranberry bogs. I've lived in this town over 40 years. I've walked the cranberry bogs. I have them in my neighborhood. I've never seen clear cutting around any of the bogs for light or filter or for bug infestation. Why would you allow them to blatantly cut 7 clear-cut acres to allow light into a cranberry bog that it's just unheard of, some of the things I heard tonight. So I'm asking this council, this group, to really take a look at these plans and dive into this and don't make a hastily decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, I think we have,
Oh, go ahead, Hal. I didn't see you.
Hi, I'm Wendy O'Brien, and I live right off of Federal Road. I just want to let you know that I have logged on several days over 200 trucks that go up and down Federal Road every single day. 200 trucks. I have the pictures on my phone if anyone would like to see it. I can tell you that I have seen the trucks coming out of that bog road that they're talking about right now. All the time, sneaking in there and coming out. All right? There's no argument that the only reason they want to cut those trees is to get at the sand, because that's their gold. Okay? They don't care about the cranberry bogs. They don't care about the residents. They don't care about the water. They care about getting at that sand to feed their money machine. That's all I have to say in regards to that. So everybody knows it. There's should be no debate. They only want to cut those trees so they can get at the sand. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to see my phone out there, I'm happy to show you trucks. They're all commercial trucks.
Again, most of the concerns that I've heard from everybody who spoke tonight is around earth removal. Sometimes it is. 200 trucks.
No, it's about water. It's about protecting the water. Right. All you're doing is passing the buck. And if that's what you're going to do, step down. Because you're putting us at danger. You're putting us in harm. And we're tired of it. This is a sand mining operation, no doubt. They came to you so that the earth removal committee can say, oh, well, conservation said it was fine.
Conservation's,
Do the right thing.
conservation's jurisdiction.
Do the right thing.
Conservation's jurisdiction in this case ends 100 feet from the wetlands. Almost everything that's being taken away from that is outside that.
Oh, conservation doesn't deal with
We
water.
can't see-
You don't protect the water? You don't protect the water?
Read our bylaws.
We are reading your bylaws. You should read the bylaws. As a matter of fact, before you make a decision, I want you to read what's on the EPA website about the sole source aquifer.
I've read that.
200,000 people you are putting at risk. Savory.
I am personally.
I mean, you are just like, oh, this is for planning, this is for zoning, this is for earth removal.
All
Go
right.
ahead, give them whatever they want, Savory.
All right, fine. Mr. Badger, you had requested earlier to have some time to
Thank
look
you.
at things.
Yep.
Do you have more?
I do. So, first of all, just to sort of get us back on an even playing field and talking about these things, we as a commission have talked a lot about in the past about precedent, and sometimes that's a good thing so that we have a structured approach to how we do make decisions. But one of the things is, as more information comes in, as town meetings enhance bylaws that are within our purview, help us maybe reinforce those things, but maybe set new standards. I know for the past couple of years, I've made a point to ask for things that are underground, and that's not by accident. That's because part of our purview is to not only protect the town's drinking water, but one of the things that was recently added in was actually protecting habitat, and not just people habitat, but animal habitat, and which I was glad to be a part of. One of the concerns I have for removing those trees, for example, is that in fact is habitat for animals that do live in that area. So when or if work like that has to occur, I think care should be taken for those considerations as well. I am concerned in terms of the timeline of these issues, as Ms. Bogart had pointed out, that you know, these projects have been going on for some time, and while we are just focused on this project tonight, it is a representation and perhaps, unfortunately, a symptom of there being many moving parts when it comes to different committees in this town, and some of which do not have a working, I won't say not a working relationship, but there is a disconnect between conservation and earth removal, and depending on if we're talking about houses or sometimes planning, because there is, I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we said there was no overlap with those different committees and their duties. With that said, I have some serious concerns with both the hydrologic evidence that has been given so far, especially when I appreciate the example you gave of the illustration of that sponge, for example, and how the soil works. However, that example is a snapshot, because when you add hydrology to that wet sponge, whatever's in that sponge does in fact push through as well. So over time, that's how plumes move, and so that's something to also consider when we do give presentations. It's important that we see also the big picture and how it does affect not just the project that we're considering tonight, but also how it affects projects that maybe we could. I think it's okay for us to say, hey, maybe we could have looked a little bit more in depth, and certainly to set lessons and standards for ourselves in terms of how we look at future projects. So with that said, I'm not quite comfortable. I know people want decisions made, but I'm not comfortable making any decision on anything this evening without some further evidence, and I'll give you the list of things that I'm looking for so I don't send you chasing your tail. That wouldn't be fair to you, right? So, one, I'm not convinced that the whole project is protected under agricultural exemption. I'm sure that of the list I give you, I'm not afraid to say, hey, I was wrong here, but there's some things that if I don't know, I'm not afraid to say, hey, I don't know, and I'd like some more answers, and I'm sure people from the public would too. The other is I would like to see those gradient plans, some things that were pointed out. It is not a critique of Ms. Sheehan, other than to say that I agree with many points that were pointed out by her and Ms. Harrelson. Is that how you pronounce her name? Thank you. However, I think one of the best ways to kind of work with the public and work with these different committees, even though there have been times where things have been more antagonistic than cooperative, is to limit things that I would view as scare tactics with the public, and one of which, for example, is saying that through satellite imagery, you've detected that something has gone below a water table from a picture. That is only a representation of the fact that maybe it had rained that day. So I'm not saying that area that you found was not under the water table, but the evidence that you illustrated would not indicate that. I'm sure there's a lot more that I would like to say, but again, I also don't want to go down a rabbit hole on a night when I know I'm I will probably refuse to vote on anything until I see some more evidence, just so I can make an informed decision, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Curtis, anything? Dave?
I think we need to look at this further. We should probably continue this.
Yeah, I plan on doing that.
And there are some significant groundwater impacts that probably will occur because of this, or that probably already have. But like I said, I'm not sure where our jurisdiction ends and begins. You know, is this? You know, that's my problem with this. I'm not sure how far we can go with this.
Well, that's one of the reasons to piggyback on that. What I was alluding to is I think there's more linkage. And unfortunately, whenever people have had problems with earth removal, they've come here because we're on TV, and that's a time for them to voice their concerns so that the public can see that they have concerns about that, and that's fine. But there should be, I think, more linkage between what's going on with earth removal and us, so that we're not late to the party, as it were, in terms of evidence that we would need to look at.
Right. And earth removal hasn't even looked at this, really. I mean, they haven't approved it or done anything with it, right? Am I correct?
I think Makepeace needs to go back to earth removal, but the earth removal that's been done so far on the bulk of this.
I mean, Earth Removal Committee, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, they've allowed
approved
that
all
to
this.
happen
Right.
already on the bulk of it. It's really the south excavation that is probably most under question, because everything else has pretty much been done.
I agree with Dan. We've got to be careful about scare tactics and not just blatantly throwing stuff out there and see what sticks. I mean, yeah, there could be some impacts here, but you know, we don't want to overly get overly excited about some of these things, because some of the stuff Sheen was saying is may be correct, but we don't know that. And I mean, so I don't know. I don't know where we can go from here.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, you know, there's certain things here where, sorry, one thing. There's certain things here where you look at it and the sniff test tells you that maybe there's something afoot here, but I don't like saying that, because I like to deal with facts, and I like to stay within my lane on this commission, but also I'd be remiss if I didn't look at things and use that sniff test, being a citizen here as well. So
I agree there. So
I'd just like to know the whole picture is all.
Before we get to you, 1 second, both of you, please.
I would think that this is a bigger picture than just us here in Carver. This is a statewide issue, or even a countywide issue, whatever. And it seems as though that this should come under the review of the DEP rather than us here per se. I mean, because this is a wider issue than just us here in this town.
DEP's already reviewed it, they had no comment.
They have no comment at all.
I have it in writing right here.
I believe it.
They had no comment, or they had no problem?
What's that, no comment? They had no comment on the filing.
I hate that. I would.
So they found no problems. It was administratively complete. It means also not approval of the application, but they had no comments on the project. And that's all I can say. I'm not DEP.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Can I ask you?
I like a body of that with that level of import to have an opinion of some kind, for or against. That's all.
And one of the people that deals with agriculture that reviews this is Brandon Costa. So he's the one that made that comment.
Well, I'm displeased with Brandon. I'd like to say that publicly. I don't know Brandon. He's probably a nice guy. I just would like more information from what he thought. That's all.
Can I ask you a question from your experience in other towns and with other conservation agents? It's a gray area, the jurisdiction, when it comes outside the 100 feet. You know, in some cases, we're being asked to look underground, which we can't do. We can't see underground. What is the general consensus in other towns? Does the jurisdiction end at the 100 feet? What happens outside that?
Well, that's, like you said, that's great. No, they pretty much hold to what you've said. They pretty much hold to the resource areas and the buffer, because that's all their purview is. I mean, we're not meant to be hydrogeologists, geologists, or any of that.
Where does that fall? Does that fall under those types of studies that are being discussed here? Who does them? Where?
That would be a hydrogeologist, that engineer that has that discipline, geologist.
But if it's outside the 100-foot, who would be the governing body to request that
upland,
happen?
I mean, basically, if you meet the what zoning bylaws are and all that in upland areas, we have no purview in that. You know, that it would be under, you know, planning, other departments. Other than that, they can do what they want as long as they meet zoning.
All right, because, you know, part of what was discussed before is the clear cutting of forests.
Right.
There are housing developments that are going up in Carver where acre-and-a-half lots are just cleared of everything, and it's nowhere near water, so we don't even know what's happening. And that has the same effect as it would here. So, you know, someone's got to be the person to look at that. You know, if you have 10 houses, an acre and a half, it's 15 acres, twice as what's here, just gone.
Some towns have
and
a
we don't even see
bylaw.
it.
Some towns have a bylaw. If you cut a tree over 6 dBH, you need permission.
Okay.
So some of that's strict, but, you know, most towns don't.
Okay.
And also, one thing I want to ask you guys, a comment was made on the plans, it's not acceptable to have a scale of 1 is 50. We have 1 is 60. Is that acceptable? That is your purview to say you can accept a plan set at 1 is 60.
Well,
since that was made for the
does
record.
Does anyone have an objection to it?
Anybody have objection to 1 is 60?
1 is 60.
All right.
Then I guess that it's acceptable to
So
us.
this plan set, as far as that goes.
Just from a common sense point of view, you know, 150, 160, wouldn't you like to see everything together on one plan and then break it down?
That was my point.
Well, you know, there's subdivision rules and regulations that say it shall be 1 in 40, but when you're doing a 4-main plan or whatever on a 500-acre site, that would mean that you have blank sheets of paper set in those plan sets, and when we run into that in other places.
That's why I brought it up.
Common sense has to play a role in some of this, and more to the point, your bylaw does say you can waive.
That's why they just waived it.
Requirements of regulations, so if you were likely to make a request on certain things that we have not shown on the plan, I'm happy to do that.
But,
We can take
you know, folks, when it comes to what happens in the upland, now, to put this in, there is no agricultural exemption. They are right now mining in an upland area. When they get down to, I'm just gonna use a hypothetical number, 80 feet. When they hit that plateau of 80 feet, say, that's gonna be the top of the dike roads. From there, they're gonna dig out and actually make the rectangular bog areas, okay? We only have jurisdiction in any of this where they tap into the 100-foot buffer from any bordering vegetative wetland or any other resource area. Anything else, like Savory said earlier, in the middle of this or any of that, we can look at it and we can look at it in the sense, okay, maybe we should, you know, get a little study or whatever on, is this going to affect the groundwater? Is it going to affect groundwater travel? That's fair. Okay, but that's as far as we can go, though.
I have a question though. You're clear cutting 7 acres of habitat with no rationale. You're allowing.
But there's no bylaw or anything that says they can't do it in an upland area. It's not protected by NHESP. They're not priority habitats or anything. So.
That's not true. That's because they wiped it out.
What's that?
That's because they wiped it out.
Well, fine, but I mean, we can't. If it's not there, we have no teeth in the matter to say something. All right, there's no rule or law that says, you know, all right, you get an upland area, it's not an NHESP, you know, jurisdiction or anything. No one can tell them not to cut it down as long as they're, you know, within the purview of zoning setbacks and everything from the property line, say. We only have so much we can do. that, and like Savory said, it's gray, you know, and
I don't think it's gray, I think it's black and white. You're here to protect residents of Carver. Do it.
And
Period.
how do we do it when if, go, one sec, how do we do it when,
The sand protects the water. You're here to protect the water. Am I wrong?
right, and then,
Right.
so,
The groundwater.
so we say no.
The groundwater that all of us rely on for drinking,
So-
for cooking, for bathing, for cleaning, all of it.
Yes, so we say,
That's your
no.
job.
So we say no, and Makepeace or whoever it is comes back and says it's not your jurisdiction, we're going to court, and we lose.
Go to court. Stand up and fight and say, we're not going to allow these predatory companies to come in and put our residents at risk. That is what we expect from you. Am I wrong? This is what you are here to do, period, end of it. Do the right thing. Start doing the right thing. Because all we see is these predatory companies coming in and getting whatever they want because you don't have the balls to stand up and say, take us to court.
So we have to do that for every single
No,
thing.
you know what? The residents have to go to
No.
court and sue you. That's what we have to do, just to get you to do the right thing.
So basically, what you're saying is that anything that happens in this town, any tree that's cut, they have to come to us. If you're building a house in the middle of nowhere, there's no water around, you got to come to us because you're taking 1.5 acres of trees down.
I don't know. You know, one safety I heard that you cut a lot of trees around your house. Did you come before the Conservation Commission and get permission? I know I'm not allowed to cut down any trees around my house because of the wetlands.
Do you even know where I live? Have you seen my house?
Yes.
It's surrounded by trees. There are no trees
Like
cut.
I said, I heard a rumor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
So I'm asking.
I heard a lot of rumors too.
Yeah. I'm
Yes,
sure you
sir.
have.
Just one thing, I think in town of Carver, as in most towns, they have a groundwater protection resource bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
That's really a starting point for everybody to agree on how the groundwater resources are to be protected. And typically, DEP and the DEP guidance, that's the guidance that's adopted by each community in their groundwater resource protection districts. So land use is the culprit with groundwater pollution, not what's falling out of the sky.
Right.
Stands to reason. I mean, what's the earth covered with? 70% water, but everything that falls out of the sky is contaminated. So wouldn't we be living in a cesspool if that were reasonably accurate? Now, the land use limitations are the things that protect the community's water supplies. So I think everyone should just understand what the groundwater protection district says and how the land uses are the things that are put in place to protect the groundwater sources.
And that's
Carver has it.
And that's, Carver has a groundwater
Yes.
protection bylaw. And
The
who
whole town is a groundwater protection area on a sole
It's
source
not.
aquifer.
who would,
That's not a correct statement.
Yes,
who
it
would-
is. Yes, it is.
That, excuse
wait,
me,
wait, folks.
I don't
Let's-
want to argue with anybody.
No,
I'm
I don't-
just trying
no.
to help somebody direction in a
Okay.
community, what to look at when if you're concerned about groundwater issues, start with your groundwater protection district. See what your bylaw reads. Land use is typically the thing that we look at first. In certain areas, certain uses are prohibited. They're prohibited for a reason, okay? And that's to protect the water supply. You wouldn't allow a wastewater treatment plant to be built in the zone 2 to a public water supply well. I mean, it stands to reason you wouldn't. But you could put it someplace in the sole source aquifer. It's not prohibited. They exist.
Right.
So that's where you really need, that's where people need to look. We need to look at that element as well. Everything plays a role, but look at that element. Everyone should look at that and see what it says.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the guy that put in, plans that are like 11 years old.
You know what?
Let me say
Yeah.
this.
I do know.
You don't know shit.
Yeah, you do.
If you're going to speak, Dan, please.
I see a lot of arguments here tonight. If the residents had seen, if they've had cranberry bogs there already, if they had started there, this was already there, I don't think you'd see the resentment and the dispute here. We go by their property, there is nothing there. They've been working it for years. I have cranberry bogs up the street from me on Purchase Street. They were wiped out this year, they were cleaned, they were cut, they were put back in within a couple months. We're talking 10 years here and they haven't put one bog in. Well, my neighbor has taken half of his out and rebuilt them in 1 year, and I look at this and I'm saying, what is going on? It's time to take attention and pay attention. That's what we're saying. It's time that we take a stand, not as citizens, but as a town as a whole, and try to protect ourselves and try to come together and just take care of ourselves because nobody else is doing it for us. Thank you.
So they're here because they asked you for a variance. Am I mistaken in that? You need to provide a variance to them, otherwise they wouldn't be here in front of all of you, right?
They need our approval.
So your hands are really not tied at all. You don't need to give them that variance until they prove otherwise, that they are sincere in their plan.
If they're doing the work between the 65-foot buffer and the 100-foot buffer, they don't need a variance.
Why are they here?
Because they're in the 100-foot buffer and that DEP says they have to be.
Take care of another million cubic yards. And don't worry about groundwater, which they are here to protect.
Because I've had some problems with Germany. Like to read for the record.
Microphone, please.
It's written into the bylaw that the purpose of the Carver Wetlands bylaw is to protect wetlands-related water resources and adjoining land areas by controlling activities likely to have significant cumulative effect on wetlands values, which includes public and private water supply, groundwater and groundwater quality, surface water and surface water quality, and flood control, erosion, and sedimentation control. So what we're asking for tonight is a protective interpretation of the Carver Wetlands bylaw to protect the resources of the town, to protect the health and safety of the residents, and to protect the future of Carver for the natural resource values that are here. And thank you very much.
Jen, Jen had her hand up a few minutes ago.
When Mr. Badger spoke about the 7 acres of clearing, it reminded me of a document that I have from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs from Massachusetts in 2010. And it says that the bog expansion is located within potential endangered species habitat and within an area considered to be highly sensitive for archaeological resources.
Which bog exactly are they talking about?
Phase C1 bog expansion, which this is part of. And then later in this memo, it says, the proposed Phase C1 Wankinko Cranberry Bog expansion requires a conservation and management permit from the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, National Heritage and Endangered Species Program, and an order of conditions from the Carver Conservation Commission. So the state did put it in your purview, and they did acknowledge Mr. Badger's concern with potential endangered species and archaeological resources. I can provide you with, what you said made me think of something that I had that confirmed a concern.
Thank you.
Jen, can I take a quick look at that, please? Ms. Sheen, did you want to speak?
Yes.
I don't want to keep this going on forever. I want to see where it was sent to conservation. I'm not. Yeah, I know, I see that. I don't know. Where did you go? 1 second.
I've had it for over a decade.
Okay, I don't, it's not really clear who this was sent to.
I've done a decade's worth of
This was,
stuff.
this was 3 years before we moved here.
1 year.
For me, 3. All right. Sorry, that was, we're just trying
If you like
to,
it, sure. Yeah.
trying to figure out who got that, who that was sent to.
Oh, I can tell you all about the T-MUD and the negotiations. I was involved in 2009, maybe some of you were, when there was a 3-town committee to oversee Makepeace's development of this site,
Okay, well,
et cetera.
right,
But I can confirm with you that this site here was an endangered species habitat. It was listed as priority habitat for the eastern box turtle, and in fact, Makepeace did get a take permit, a CMP permit from Natural Heritage, and they have wiped out this entire area and done nothing to follow that permit. Okay, so that's like gone by the wayside. In addition, there was also a archaeological study and a letter from the Mass Historical Commission that said the Ronquinco Bog spot, which is what this is, was a potentially eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places site. It had, I believe, a home site and an encampment. Mr. Kane from AD Makepeace has stated that he believes the bogs were relocated in order to avoid destroying that site. So there's no evidence that that site has been preserved. And I don't know what you're muttering about the CMP permit, but the location has been obliterated and there's no evidence of compliance with the permit. I've researched it. I'd be happy to provide you all of this information. It's on our website, including the original T-MUD and our comments on it, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to point out that your own bylaws do allow you to charge a consultant fee based on the size of the project, and given that the earth removal in this location and the surrounding area has probably exceeded $50 million, you have lots of leverage here to...
We had nothing to do with earth removal.
But I would point out that the commission may hire a consultant to assess hydrological impacts. It says for analyzing resource area functions and values, including wildlife habitat evaluations, hydrogeologic and drainage analysis, and researching environmental or land use law. So you can use that authority under your bylaw to hire your own experts to answer a lot of these questions. I'd also like to point out that your zoning bylaw, as Mr. Horsley states in his affidavit, very explicitly, the entire town of Carver is a zoning protection district for water. So you might want to look into that and see that your town, and it's shown very clearly on your town zoning map, that the entire town is a water resource protection district. The state drinking water regulations prohibit mining within 4 feet of the groundwater. I have studied those plans from Mr. Madden from 2011 and 2017. It shows that the excavation will be 4 feet above the groundwater. I'm sorry, but I resent the fact that I'm being accused of scare tactics. The evidence that I was referring to of mining in the groundwater was communicated to me by Mr. Horsley and another professional engineer. I did not make that up.
Well, I'm not really prepared to apologize for using the term scare tactics, but let's just say that we have stylistic differences in terms of how we present information, where I will say that things are scary when not all the evidence is produced. If you're just presenting information to just further one point and not the whole picture, that can be viewed as scary, because things are scary when you don't see everything. So if you don't like the term, if you don't like the term scare tactics, I can use other words if you prefer. But what I will say is, 9 times out of 10, whenever you've been before us, your presentations are incomplete. And things that are incomplete can scare people that don't know as much as you do about this particular issue, or as much as this body does about a particular issue. So all I'm saying is, all I'm suggesting as a friendly neighbor is when you do present some of this information, we should do it in a way where we're not finger pointing and talking at people, but talking with people. If you would like to educate the public, there are better ways to do that other than just pointing fingers. Now, I'm mostly in agreement with almost everything you've said, except as I said, we have stylistic differences. I don't particularly care for the way you present things to us in the town. There are things that have been said about this body where somebody might take it personally. I don't, because 9 times out of 10, when I do hear certain things that are disparaging in my direction, I know, well, she's not talking about me in particular, but, you know, what it does do is it diminishes the body's ability to do our work. And so to that point, that's not really a cooperative relationship. So,
But when people come in front of you and continually ask for things to be done, like water tested, or, I mean, at any point, this commission can ask for evidence, but it's not read.
no.
It is out there, it is not read. We inundate these boards with information.
And as I said before, I believe there should be better linkage between a lot of these committees, because I think things do slip through the cracks because we find out things after the fact. Or we're handed a piece of information where our jurisdiction is in fact limited when we're looking at a particular thing to vote on. Which is frustrating for me personally. I hear what you're saying.
I'd just like to respond to that. I have always offered to provide ample evidence and backup for what I'm saying, but this board has never asked me for one scintilla of information. And I came here tonight and I presented about this specific project based on information that I obtained from experts. And if you would like me to provide that to you, I'm more than willing to do so. If there's anything else that you think is incomplete based on what I presented tonight, please let me know and I'd be happy to provide it. I'm not here to engage in scare tactics or besmirching everyone. I am here to protect the resources and to help the people in this region protect our sole source drinking water aquifer and our environment.
All right, we could talk in circles all night long. Let's try to figure out what we want to do. I think we want to continue. You had said a couple of things that you wanted. You wrote them down, what Dan, like, can you provide some, you had said that the area that's most in contention tonight, which is the 7 or so acres on the south side, that you had mentioned that was being cut back for air circulation, for frost, and also for shading, to remove shading. Is there data to support that you could bring back to us year over year compared to other parts of these existing banks? Sorry?
Yes.
Okay. Then that's something I would like you to do. Come back with the data that indicates, you know, that these trees are affecting.
Well, in general, yes, I can provide you with that information.
Okay. Then that.
I'll provide you with the information that I have.
Okay. That's fine.
Satisfactory.
Yeah.
That's fine. If it isn't, I'm sure that we know as well.
Yeah.
In general, or in this particular spot? In general, or in this spot, like, if a tree is in...
I'll provide the information to the commission at the next meeting, and we can discuss it at that time.
The statement that he made earlier was that this southern edge of these particular bogs were showing a smaller yield than the rest of the bog because of shading and had more frost.
The bogs aren't built.
No, these are existing bogs.
But he just said he will provide you with general information, and the question is it general information, or is it going to be information particular to this bog?
Do you have it?
If you're asking me if I've done it, if we have a study that outlines each one of those elements with With respect to this location
Yeah.
of that
You
cranberry
don't.
bog, the answer is no.
Okay. All right.
But if we have information that shows the detrimental effects of shading, detrimental effects of poor air circulation,
That's fine.
detrimental effects of insects in your sources, yes,
All right.
we have that information.
Is there a way to look at this particular area again and see if you can get the results you want regarding frost and sunlight without doing as much excavation as you indicate here?
I'll have to check with them.
Okay.
The foreman and the written, but yes, well, I'll look into it. I
Okay.
understand what you're asking for, and I'll
Yeah.
look into that. Yes.
Okay.
Do they need to take out all the vegetation? I mean, if it's a tree, like, why can't they leave, like, I live on a pond, and you can't touch the land as you go, but you can, you know, site view, you can cut without digging up all the vegetation. So if they really just want to, you know, support their cranberries, do they have to dig up the whole ground and excavate,
All right.
you know?
You just said a key thing, though, within 100 feet, and if you look at the drawing, most of that hill is outside the 100 feet. And, you know, so,
But it's in the endangered species. That was
So
not
we've heard.
reported to you guys.
all right, so,
I was just gonna say, like, you request to go back into, like, I wasn't able to make it today, I had a medical appointment I had to go to, do another site visit where I'm able to go and kind of.
I'd like that too.
can we arrange another site visit for these two gentlemen?
Can we arrange another, Chuck?
Yeah, all right.
So
Let's do that.
Is it within our, the question here too, though, this is frustrating to me, because was it within our jurisdiction to make requirements or studies be done about groundwater? Can we do that?
There is a groundwater bylaw in town that is not a conservation bylaw.
Not a conservation.
The bylaw that I just cited to you said you have authority, read your bylaw. It says you can hire a consultant to study the groundwater under the general bylaw.
I'm just a little bit confused on it. I just don't know how to comment on it. It's very difficult for me.
Yeah, well, one of my...
We could.
We could.
We could.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we could, and, you know, one of my frustrations always with our bylaw, you know, when things go to town meeting, you know, we can take a bite at enhancing a bullet point on the list of bullet points that we have, but half of those bullet points have nothing to do with 65 feet, 100 feet. Nothing talks about gradient. Nothing talks about hydrological concerns, even though everybody and their brother knows that those concerns directly affect drinking water. And drinking water is supposedly one of the main things that we are in charge of protecting. So it's, you know,
But
in
see,
terms...
there's no proof that the drinking water's been degraded.
No, that's right. That's true.
That's
But
the big
what
thing,
I'm
right?
trying,
There's no degradation.
what I'm trying to get is there an avenue for which we can do a better job of protecting these resources, or at least in a proactive way, you know, addressing issues before things get so far out of hand that, you know, that we're always looking at things after the fact.
Well, sure, but who's gonna pay for it?
Yeah, well,
I mean, the mechanism's there, but
Yeah.
someone's gotta pay for it and gotta manage it.
Another issue too here is that this does fall under agricultural.
But it's not exempt because it's not agricultural.
Not at this
But
point.
it's upland, so it's out of our purview per se.
Ms. Dormer, last comment.
I just want to point out, the DEP does not regulate private wells, so we have no choice but to depend on you. They only regulate public wells. So we need you to protect our private drinking water. Going to the DEP is useless. They're not going to care about my private well unless it's contaminated by a public, like a landfill or a dig site or somebody illegally dumping. And then they'll say that well has to be protected and they'll get the town involved.
and that's an after-the-fact issue, which is
That's how everything is. You know,
right.
it's managed.
No, I get it.
Crisis
I get it.
But to
management.
this commission to protect the private water, drinking water of this community.
But how do you test water to see if it has been contaminated from something that hasn't been built yet?
But
How do you do that?
Safely, when you take the sand out that is the natural filter, you're going to assume that water is
You
going
can't
to-
assume that.
Why not?
It's a scientific
There's no
fact. Read
filter.
Horsley's thing, it's a scientific
Yeah,
fact.
I can find someone who will counter everything Horsley says, but
But Savory, we're asking you to take the steps to protect our water. And if you don't, I mean, just put it into the order conditions that whatever company will test within 100 feet, the private wells within 100 feet, to see if they're contaminated while they're doing the work, while they're excavating the sand, while they're selling it. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is going on. There are so many areas in Carver that are contaminated with PFAS. There are so many children that are popping up with cancer in North Carver. It is unbelievable. And we're fighting over having private wells tested? Come on.
that's not really what I thought you were asking for. I thought you were saying that that what kind of contamination is going to happen with this.
All contamination is going to happen when you take
How
the
do you
natural
know?
filter out.
So the way to resolve this, though, is this. If you'd have to do a hydrologic study, you'd have to drill wells now. Test around this whole area in a big circle, test those wells. Then once you did this, once they completed their project here, those wells stay, as monitoring wells, stay in place. And that's what would have to be done in order to answer your questions. That's what would have to be done. There'd have to be wells drilled in the entire perimeter around this whole site. And they had to be tested periodically, and somebody would have to pay for that.
Well, that's what I said,
Yeah,
someone's
I
gonna
mean-
manage it and pay for it.
So,
It's why they put monitoring wells on sites. There are no monitoring wells.
if the site's already been excavated now, so it's it's kind of a done deal. So the way you would do it right now is you'd have to put monitoring wells around the entire area, test them now, and continually test them for whatever, every 5 years, whatever. I don't know, whatever they do. I don't know. But I don't know if that's under. We can't. I don't know. It's a complicated issue there. I don't know if that's.
Again, it falls into the gray area.
Yeah.
Who's
I mean, the basics, yes, we are supposed to like groundwater, but our main purview is above ground resource areas.
right?
That's our main.
Groundwater, the wetlands filter and protect the groundwater.
I understand that, but there's no natural wetlands down in the basin of where they've excavated. So you've got there's nothing to protect down there. It's all excavated.
The
So then why are
EPA,
they here?
the EPA said that we.
Because they have to go into the 100-foot buffer, and most of the wetlands that are being affected are cranberry wetlands, i.e. drainage ways and all that, but they're still considered wetlands. They're not natural wetlands. They're mostly man-made.
Right, it's still wet. It's still
That's what I said.
Yes,
I did say that.
But they're here for very little incursion.
Right, it's just into the buffer.
Yeah, that's what they're here for.
And not the whole entire purview of the project, just in certain areas.
For different
The entire purview of the project has already gone into the groundwater flow direction and removed the nitrate capacity of the trees that filter and protect the groundwater. If you read
Right.
the studies.
All right, that's fine. Let me ask you this. All the existing cranberry bogs in town, how much nitrate and PFAs and other chemicals that you're worried about are they adding to the groundwater?
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about.
Well, that would have to be your study because these aren't built yet.
Okay, Mr. Horace's report cites.
I'm not
the
talking
February
about his
study.
report. I'm talking about what's being polluted now in the existing cranberry bogs that you're all worried
But
about.
it's
No,
all
I'm
polluted.
worried about this site and more.
But that would be your
here.
test areas would be the existing sites.
So then test the private wells around all of those sites, which you can do. You are here to protect the private drinking water of
We
this
can't
town.
do that.
Yeah.
Around all the existing
Well,
cranberry
you're
bogs.
asking the question. There's
I
a
know that, but
solution.
you have to come back with us with data that's saying the pollution's happening.
I can
Oh,
come back with
after the
data that
fact.
You know,
pollution
we-
is Dan can come back with, there is pollution all over this town.
So how are we supposed to get access to private land? I'm supposed to go on Makepeace's land and put in a well and say, oh, the land's contaminated, water's contaminated?
That's the gray area.
It's not a gray
It's not a
area.
gray area.
Sure it
We
is.
have authority to do a hydrological study.
I'm talking about all the existing other cranberry bogs that
Why are
are,
you talking about the other?
because those would be, because you're saying this PFAs and nitrates and everything are gonna come off of the bog.
Of course there are.
Well,
I'm saying.
where's your data? That's all I'm
saying
asking.
that the scientific studies relied on by scientists.
We're going in circles here.
We are.
Yeah, this
We
is.
are.
Let's continue this.
Yeah, it's late,
All
we're
right.
going in circles.
I just want to add one more thing, if I may. If 3 of these 9 bogs were a little bit smaller and didn't encroach into the 165-foot area, they wouldn't be in front of us at all, and we wouldn't have any say at all as to what's going on, because they would not need to come in front of us.
Well, I
So-
want to say one more thing. You can address the erosion that the expert told us that is occurring.
All right, but what I'm saying is that Mr. Madden could very well go back and say, you know what, we're going to cut these 3 bogs, make them a little smaller, then we don't have to deal with conservation.
Why
But
did you
but
come
we're
before
here
in
now saying,
2008?
but we're here now saying, we want you to protect the groundwater. Are you going to ignore us?
If it's outside of our jurisdiction, we have no say.
But that is not outside of your jurisdiction
It
because
is.
you regulate the groundwater.
They do not have to come in front of us.
You protect the groundwater.
They do not have to come in front of us if they don't touch the 100-foot buffer.
Why don't you at least protect the 100-foot buffer and tell them no? Why don't you just, you know, I mean. if
We
you
haven't
go-
voted, we haven't said yes,
Okay, well then please say no. I'm asking.
and then it'll just make it smaller and they won't have to come back.
Okay, that's okay, you know what?
And then we'll come back.
And
in
then
front
we'll
of
go
you
to
and
the planning board, and then we'll go to the earth removal. So why don't you
that's-
We've
say
had-
no?
No's not always the right answer.
Well, saying yes all the time isn't the right answer either.
Say yes all the time. I'm not going to get into a verbal with you, Mary.
Why don't we get the information you requested?
That's what we're going to do.
Take the time to look at it, and then we'll meet again.
That's why I asked for it.
Educated and data make it-
That's why I asked for it.
That's what that's for.
All right, I need a motion to continue.
moved.
How long, do you need 2 weeks, 4 weeks? We're meeting again
August 2nd.
August 2nd, and
And-
then August 15th,
Something like that, yeah.
16th, and then we don't meet again till September. We
Correct.
only meet
So we'll
twice a
have that
month.
long stretch.
Yeah, so it's either 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or 7 weeks.
Why don't we try the 16th?
Okay.
You can always email me.
No, we'll put it down for the 16th. Yes. All right, so I need a motion to continue this to the 16th.
Second.
I saw Curtis first with the motion. Second. Okay, second?
Second, sure.
All right, so Dave, second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to continue this hearing till August 16th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay.
Minutes.
Minutes, I did not get a chance to read them, so I'd like to table them till our next meeting. And, no, I don't think so. I think we're good.
Sure, I heard 4 hours.
Yeah.
Motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn, right.
Anyone? All right. Dave with the motion, Curtis with the second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Hearing any opposed? Hearing none, we're out.